kisha wote kuelekea dira ya taifa ya maendeleo 2050. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, kwa siku 3 zijazo, kongamano hili litakuwa jukwaa muhimu la kubadilishana uzoefu, kujifunza, kujadili namna bora ya kuimarisha faragha, lakini kulinda taarifa binafsi na kujenga imani katika mifumo yetu ya kidijitali inayowezesha uchumi wetu wa kidijitali. Kwa niaba ya Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi na kwa niaba yangu binafsi, naomba kuwakaribisha. Kwa wale wanaotoka nje ya Dar es Salaam, karibuni sana kwenye kongamano hili. Na kwa heshima, ninaomba tusimame kwa dakika moja wakati ninaenda kufanya sala ya Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi. Kabla ya kuanza shughuli yoyote, tuna sala. So may I request all the participants to stand up for a short while we do a prayer for opening the ceremony. And this is the special PDPC prayer. Kwa wale inaowapendeza wanaweza kufunga macho, wengine mnaweza mkaendelea. Ee Mwenyezi Mungu mwingi wa rehema, muumba wa mbingu na ardhi, tunakushukuru kwa wema na fadhila zako kutujalia uzima, afya njema na kutukutanisha tukiwa na nia na ari ya kutekeleza majukumu ambayo tumeaminia kuyafanya kwa niaba ya serikali ya Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania na watu wake. Tunaomba uibariki Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi, viongozi na watumishi wake, ili tutekeleze majukumu yetu yanayolenga kulinda faragha na taarifa binafsi. Tunaomba utuongoze na utujalie hekima na busara katika hatua ya kutekeleza majukumu yetu, na hasa hili ambalo tunaenda kulifanya kwa siku 3 la Kongamano la Kwanza la Faragha na Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi. Ee Mwenyezi Mungu, tunaomba uipokee dua yetu. Amen. Naomba tukae. Asante. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, kwa mujibu wa ratiba tulikuwa tupate salamu kutoka ofisi ya mkuu wa mkoa. Mpaka nasimama hapa tulikuwa hatujapata mwakilishi wake, lakini ninaomba kwa ridhaa yako tuweze kuendelea. Na sasa kwa mujibu wa ratiba hiyo, niombe kwa heshima kubwa kuwatambulisha wageni ambao wako hapa ili tuweze kuanza na ukaribisho. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, wageni walioko hapa ni wengi. Nitawatambulisha kwa makundi. Kwanza tunaye katibu wetu mkuu mpendwa wa Wizara ya Mawasiliano na Teknolojia ya Habari, Bwana Mohamed Hamisi Abdullah. Asante. Hayo makofi hayatoshi kwa kiongozi wetu. Asante. Tunaye naibu wake Bwana Nicholas Merinyo Mkapa. Tuna mwenyekiti wa bodi ya Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi Balozi Adadi Mohamed Rajabu. Tunaye makamu mwenyekiti wa bodi ya PDPC Bi Fatma Mohamed Ali. Yuko na wajumbe wa bodi hiyo ambao wamekaa nyuma ya mgeni rasmi. Naomba msimame kwa pamoja tafadhali. Namuona Kakalimo na wengine pale. Tumewaalika pia wenye viti wa bodi na wajumbe wa bodi za taasisi zilizoko chini ya wizara. Kama wamefika popote walipo, naomba waweze kutusalimia. Asante. Tunaye mkurugenzi mkuu na mwenyeji wa kongamano hili Dr. Emmanuel Lameki Mkilia, lakini ameongozana na management yake. Naomba management mlipokaa tafadhali muweze kuwapungia, maana kamanda wetu hakai mwenyewe, na mimi nimekaa miongoni mwa hao. Tunao wakuu wa taasisi za usimamizi wa faragha na ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi kutoka Afrika Mashariki. Kwanza tunaye dada yetu mpendwa sana Bi Immaculate Kasaiti. Makofi mengi, na kina mama mnaweza kupiga vigelegele. Huyu ni dada yetu, mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi anatupenda, alivyoalikwa hakuchukua hatua, amekuja. Lakini tunaye Bwana Beka Birikuja kutoka Uganda, ambaye ndio mkurugenzi wa Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi ya kule, na yeye pia. Hawa ni makaka na dada ambao tunasukuma gurudumu hili la faragha na ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi katika Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki. Lakini tuna wenzetu kutoka ni Sudani ya Kusini kama sikosei. Hamjui Kiswahili, naomba basi hata msimame msalimie. Dr. No waambie kwa Kiingereza, maana mimi kimepotea kidogo hapa. Lakini Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, tuna watoa mada, lakini pia tunao mapanelist, wanajopo wako wengi. Naomba wote kwa pamoja tuweze kusimama. The panelists and the moderators and the keynote speakers as well. Okay. Tunao makamishna mbalimbali, lakini tuna wakuu wa wawakilishi wa wizara, idara za serikali zinazojitegemea, wakala wa serikali, mamlaka za udhibiti na taasisi mbalimbali za umma. Vile vile, Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, tuna viongozi na wawakilishi wa sekta binafsi, taasisi za fedha, kampuni za teknolojia na simu na washirika wetu wa maendeleo. Lakini tunalo kundi moja mashuhuri sana, Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi. Kundi hili ni la maafisa ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi. Hawa naomba msimame, DPOs. Mheshimiwa naibu waziri, hawa ndio maafisa ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi, sio maafisa wale korokorene. Hapana, hawa wanalinda taarifa binafsi kwa mifumo na taratibu katika kuhakikisha zinakuwa salama. Tunao wadau kutoka vyuo vikuu, taasisi za utafiti, asasi za kiraia pamoja na wanahabari. Lakini pia tuna maafisa utumishi. Mheshimiwa naibu waziri, hawa ndio wana taarifa zetu za ajira, kila kitu mpaka afya zetu, na tumeenda hospitali mara ngapi kwa mwaka, maafisa utumishi wanazo. Lakini tuna wataalamu wa TEHAMA ambao ndio wana makufuli ya seva zetu, wahasibu, lakini wana sheria, wahandisi, maafisa usalama wa taasisi mbalimbali, wachumi na maafisa mawasiliano na uhusiano kwa umma. Lakini tunao wafadhili wa kongamano hili ambao kwa kweli wameweza kufanikisha jambo hili. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, sasa niombe uruhusu kwa kuanza shughuli yetu tuweze kupata salamu kutoka kwa mkurugenzi mkuu wa Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi, Dr. Emmanuel 𝐊𝐴𝐺𝐻𝐿 ili atoe hotuba yake ya ukaribisho. DG, tafadhali naomba upite huko. Naomba tumkaribishe kwa makofi anapokuja.
Mheshimiwa Dr. Sweetbird Zakaria Mkama, mbunge, naibu waziri wa mawasiliano na teknolojia ya habari, Mheshimiwa kaka yangu ndugu yangu Mohamed Hamisi Abdullah, katibu mkuu Wizara ya Habari, Wizara ya Mawasiliano na Teknolojia ya Habari, Mheshimiwa Balozi Adadi Mohamed Rajabu, mwenyekiti wa bodi yetu ya Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi, waheshimiwa makatibu wakuu na naibu katibu mkuu wetu kaka yangu Nicholas Mkapa, waheshimiwa wajumbe wa bodi ya Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi, waheshimiwa wakuu wa bodi pia wa taasisi zilizo chini ya wizara kama wapo, wakuu wa taasisi za ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi kutoka nchi jirani na rafiki zetu kutoka Kenya, namuona dadangu 𝐊𝐼𝐚𝐺𝐳𝐚, kutoka Uganda, namuona kaka yangu hapo, na mataifa mengine. Natambua kwamba tuna ndugu zetu kutoka South Sudan, lakini pia tuna ndugu zetu na panelists kutoka South Africa, wawakilishi wa mashirika ya kimataifa, kikanda na kitaifa, viongozi wa taasisi za umma na binafsi, maafisa wa ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi, wataalamu wa sekta mbalimbali, ndugu zetu waandishi wa habari na wageni waalikwa. Kazi na utu. Kazi na utu. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, kwanza kabisa namshukuru Mwenyezi Mungu kwa kutujalia afya njema na kutuwezesha kukutana hapa leo katika ufunguzi wa kongamano letu la kwanza la kitaifa la faragha na ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi hapa nchini kwetu. Napenda kutoa shukrani za dhati kwa Mheshimiwa Naibu Waziri kwa kukubali, ingawaje ni kwa muda mfupi, kwa kukubali kuwa mgeni wetu rasmi wa kongamano hili muhimu. Na nafahamu jinsi ambavyo ratiba yako imebanana, hasa kipindi hiki muhimu ambapo vikao vya bunge vinaendelea, lakini pia na mategemeo ya wajibu wako kwa wananchi wa jimbo la Ukerewe. Aidha, tunashukuru wageni wetu wote kutoka ndani na nje ya nchi ya Tanzania kwa kuitikia mwaliko wetu na kushiriki katika mjadala huu muhimu kuhusu mustakabali wa faragha na ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi katika zama hizi, hasa tunapoingia katika uchumi wa kidigitali. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, kongamano hili ni la kwanza kufanyika hapa nchini tangu kutungwa kwa Sheria ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi mwaka 2022 na kuanzishwa kwa Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi mwezi Mei 2023. Hili ni tukio la kihistoria kwa taifa letu kwa sababu linatupa fursa ya kutathmini tulipotoka, tulipo sasa na tunapokwenda katika kujenga mfumo imara wa kulinda faragha na taarifa binafsi za wananchi. Tunapokutana hapa, Tanzania inaendelea kushuhudia ukuaji mkubwa wa matumizi ya teknolojia, hasa matumizi ya kidigitali. Idadi ya watumiaji wa internet inaendelea kuongezeka. Huduma nyingi za serikali na zisizo za kiserikali zinatolewa kwa njia za kidigitali. Kwa hiyo ubunifu unazidi kuongezeka na hivyo kufanya swala zima la ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi kuwa nyeti. Biashara za mtandaoni zinaongezeka na matumizi ya mifumo ya kidigitali yamekuwa sehemu ya maisha ya kila siku ya wananchi. Maendeleo haya ni jambo la kujivunia. Hata hivyo, kadri matumizi ya teknolojia yanavyoendelea kuongezeka, ndivyo umuhimu wa kulinda taarifa binafsi unavyozidi kuwa mkubwa. Bila ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi, wananchi hawawezi kuwa na imani na kutumia huduma za kidijitali, na bila imani hiyo uchumi wa kidijitali hauwezi kukua kwa kiwango tunachokitarajia. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi ilianzishwa kwa mujibu wa Sheria ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi sura ya 44 ikiwa na jukumu la kusimamia utekelezaji wa sheria hii, kusajili wakusanyaji na wachakataji wa taarifa binafsi, kutoa elimu kwa umma, kushughulikia malalamiko na kuhakikisha uzingatiaji wa matakwa ya sheria hiyo unazingatiwa. Katika kipindi cha miaka miwili tangu kuanzishwa kwake rasmi, tume imepiga hatua kubwa katika kujenga mifumo ya utekelezaji wa sheria na kuimarisha uelewa wa wadau. Miongoni mwa mafanikio yaliyopatikana ni pamoja na kuanzishwa kwa mfumo wa usajili wa wakusanyaji na wachakataji wa taarifa binafsi, na kwa maana hiyo usajili wa uzingatiaji na usajili unafanyika online kwa kutumia mifumo yetu. Kuandaliwa kwa miongozo mbalimbali ya utekelezaji wa utoaji wa mafunzo kwa ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi, utekelezaji wa kampeni za elimu kwa umma, pamoja na kuimarisha ushirikiano wa taasisi na nchi zetu za jirani. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, tume inaendelea kutoa elimu kwa umma kupitia vyombo vya habari, majukwaa ya kidigitali, semina, washa na mikutano mbalimbali ya wadau. Elimu hii imechangia kuongezeka kwa uelewa wa wananchi kuhusu haki zao za faragha na wajibu wa taasisi zao zinazoshughulikia taarifa binafsi. Aidha, tume imeendelea kujenga uwezo wa maafisa ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi ambao leo hii wamekuwa sehemu muhimu kuhakikisha kuwa taasisi zao zinafuata matakwa ya sheria na viwango vya ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, katika kutekeleza majukumu yake, tume imeendelea kushirikiana kwa karibu na wizara, taasisi za serikali, sekta binafsi, vyuo vikuu, na kwa sasa tunaanzisha programu ambayo itakuwa inatoa certification kwa ajili ya maafisa wa ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi hapa nchini. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, kwa upande wa ushirikiano wa kimataifa, tume imeendelea kujenga mahusiano na taasisi za usimamizi wa sheria ya ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi katika nchi mbalimbali duniani na barani Afrika kwa lengo la kubadilishana uzoefu, kujenga uwezo wa kuimarisha ushirikiano katika masuala ya mtiririko wa taarifa kuvuka mipaka. Na hili ni jukumu pia la Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa kama ilivyoainishwa katika sheria yetu ya ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi. Napenda kutumia fursa hii kuwakaribisha kwa pekee wageni wetu kutoka Kenya, Uganda, Sudani Kusini, Afrika Kusini na nchi nyingine za Afrika ambao wameungana nasi katika kongamano hili. Uwepo wao hapa ni uthibitisho kwamba masuala ya faragha ya ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi hayana mipaka na kwamba mafanikio ya nchi moja yanategemea pia ushirikiano wa kikanda na kimataifa. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, kauli mbiu ya kongamano hili isemayo faragha kama nguzo, ulinzi wa kidigitali jumuishi kuelekea dira yetu ya maendeleo ya 2050 imechaguliwa kwa makusudi. Kauli mbiu hii inatambua kwamba Tanzania inaelekea kwenye uchumi unaotegemea maarifa, teknolojia, ubunifu na huduma za kidigitali. Hata hivyo, maendeleo hayo hayawezi kuwa endelevu bila kuwepo kwa mifumo madhubuti ya kulinda taarifa binafsi na kujenga imani ya wananchi katika matumizi ya teknolojia. Faragha si kikwazo cha maendeleo ya kidigitali. Kinyume chake, faragha ndiyo msingi wa maendeleo hayo. Faragha hujenga imani, imani hujenga ushiriki wa wananchi, na ushiriki wa wananchi huwezesha ukuaji wa uchumi wa kidigitali. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, Katika siku hizi tatu za kongamano tutapata fursa ya kujadili masuala mbalimbali muhimu, ikiwepo utekelezaji wa sheria za ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi, matumizi ya akili unde, usalama wa mtandao, usimamizi wa taarifa nyeti, mtiririko wa taarifa kuvuka mipaka, wajibu wa maafisa ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi, pamoja na nafasi ya ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi katika kufanikisha dira yetu ya maendeleo 2050. Ni matumaini yangu kuwa majadiliano yatakayofanyika yatazalisha mawazo, uzoefu na mapendekezo yatakayosaidia kuimarisha utekelezaji wa sheria, kuimarisha ushirikiano wa wadau, kuifanya Tanzania kuwa miongoni mwa nchi zinazoongoza katika kujenga mazingira salama na yenye kuaminika kidigitali. Kwa niaba ya Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi, ninawashukuru washiriki wote, wadhamini wetu. Tuna wadhamini wengi wamejitokeza, na hii inaonyesha kwamba tunashirikiana vizuri na tunapata nafasi nzuri ya kujadili kwa pamoja, kujenga misingi imara itakayotengeneza mazingira yaliyo bora katika utekelezaji wa sheria hii. Kwa hiyo nichukue nafasi hii kuwashukuru sponsors wetu, wakiwepo TRA, wakiwepo Vodacom, wakiwepo na wengine wengi, Tigo, taasisi za kiserikali kama NSSF na wengine kwa uchache. Niwashukuru sana. Taasisi zilizoshiriki maandalizi ya kongamano hili pamoja na wageni wote waliotenga muda wao kushiriki pamoja nasi. Kwa mara nyingine tena ninawakaribisha Tanzania na ninawatakia kongamano lenye mafanikio makubwa. Kwa niaba ya management na wafanyakazi wa Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi, na kushukuru sana Mheshimiwa Naibu Waziri kwa kuwa pamoja nasi katika tukio hili muhimu la tume. Asanteni sana kwa kunisikiliza.
Naomba tuongeze makofi kwa mwenyeji wetu wa kongamano. Tangu tumeanza maandalizi ya kongamano hili, Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, nilikuwa sijaona smile ya mkurugenzi wangu mkuu, lakini baada ya hotuba yake hapa, baada ya kuona anatabasamu, hata mimi nimepata hamu ya kutabasamu. Naomba tumshangilie tena kwa makofi. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, mabibi na mabwana, sasa ni heshima kubwa kwangu kumkaribisha mwenyekiti wa bodi ya Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi, Balozi Adadi Mohamed Rajabu, kuja kwanza kutoa hotuba ya ukaribisho, lakini pia ninamwomba aweze kumkaribisha mgeni wetu rasmi, Mheshimiwa Dr. Sweetbet Zakaria Mkama, mbunge, naibu wetu waziri wa mawasiliano na teknolojia ya habari, ili aweze kutufungulia kongamano letu. Mheshimiwa mwenyekiti, tafadhali karibu. Naomba tumkaribishe anavyokuja huku, tusiwe wavivu wa kupiga makofi, ni hii ufunguzi tu.
Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi Dr. Sweetbet Zakaria Mkama, mbunge na naibu waziri wa mawasiliano na teknolojia ya habari, Mheshimiwa Mohamed Hamis Abdullah, katibu wetu mkuu Wizara ya Mawasiliano na Teknolojia ya Habari, waheshimiwa makatibu wakuu na manaibu makatibu wakuu, Mheshimiwa naibu katibu mkuu Mheshimiwa Nicholas Mkapa, Dr. Emmanuel 𝐊𝐼𝐴𝐺𝐻𝐚, mkurugenzi wetu mkuu wa Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi, wajumbe wa bodi ya PDPC, wajumbe wa bodi za wakurugenzi wa taasisi chini ya wizara yetu, wakuu wa taasisi zilizo chini ya Wizara ya Mawasiliano na Teknolojia ya Habari, wakuu wa taasisi ya ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi kutoka Kenya, Uganda na mataifa mengine waliowakilishwa hapa, wawakilishi wa mashirika ya kimataifa, kikanda na kitaifa, viongozi wa taasisi za umma na binafsi, wataalamu wa sekta mbalimbali, waandishi wa habari, wageni waalikwa, kazi na utu. Sijasikia kazi na utu. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, Naibu Waziri wa Mawasiliano na Teknolojia ya Habari, kwanza kabisa namshukuru Mwenyezi Mungu mwingi wa rehema kwa kutujalia afya njema na kutuwezesha kukutana hapa leo katika kongamano hili la kihistoria kwa taifa letu. Napenda pia kutumia nafasi hii kwa dhati ya moyo wangu kukushukuru Mheshimiwa Naibu Waziri kwa kukubali kuwa mgeni rasmi katika kongamano hili muhimu. Bodi ya wakurugenzi wa tume, management na watumishi wa tume pamoja na washiriki wote, tunakushukuru kwa kukubali kuwa nasi hapa leo kwenye kongamano letu la kwanza la Faragha na ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi. Aidha, ninawashukuru washiriki wote kutoka ndani na nje ya nchi kwa kujumuika nasi katika mjadala huu unaohusu moja ya masuala muhimu zaidi katika tazma za sasa za maendeleo ya kidijitali, yaani faragha na ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, kwa niaba ya bodi ya Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi, nawakaribisha kwa moyo mkunjufu katika kongamano hili la kwanza la kitaifa la faragha na ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi. Kufanyika kwa kongamano hili ni hatua muhimu katika safari ya Tanzania ya kujenga mfumo wa kisasa wa usimamizi wa taarifa binafsi unaozingatia haki za binadamu, unaokuza ubunifu wa kidijitali na unaojenga mazingira ya kuaminika kwa wananchi, wawekezaji na wadau wa maendeleo. Tunapokutana hapa leo, ni vyema tukatambua kwamba dunia inabadilika kwa kasi kubwa. Teknolojia imebadili namna tunavyoishi, kufanya biashara, kujifunza, kuwasiliana na kupata huduma. Kadri maendeleo hayo yanavyoendelea, ndivyo taarifa binafsi zinavyozidi kuwa mali muhimu kwa watu binafsi, taasisi na mataifa. Katika mazingira haya, jukumu la kulinda taarifa binafsi si swala la hiari tena. Ni swala la msingi katika utawala bora, maendeleo ya uchumi na kidijitali, ulinzi wa haki za binadamu na ujenzi wa imani ya wananchi katika mifumo ya kidijitali. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, bodi ya Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi imepewa jukumu la kutoa mwelekeo wa kimkakati, kusimamia utendaji wa taasisi na kuhakikisha kuwa tume inatekeleza majukumu yake kwa ufanisi kwa mujibu wa Sheria ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi. Katika kutekeleza wajibu huo, bodi imeendelea kusimamia ujenzi wa taasisi imara yenye uwezo wa kukabiliana na changamoto za sasa na zijazo katika mazingira ya kidijitali. Tangu kuanzishwa kwa tume hii, bodi imeelekeza nguvu zake katika maeneo makuu manne, Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi. Kwanza, kujenga taasisi yenye uwezo wa kutekeleza majukumu yake kwa ufanisi na kwa viwango vinavyokubalika kimataifa. Na pili, kuimarisha mazingira ya uzingatiaji wa sheria ya ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi kwa taasisi za umma na binafsi. Tatu, kujenga uelewa wa umma kuhusu haki za faragha na wajibu wa wadau katika usimamizi wa taarifa binafsi. Na nne, kuimarisha ushirikiano wa kimataifa, kikanda na kimataifa katika masuala ya ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, katika kipindi kifupi tangu kuanzishwa kwa tume, tumeshuhudia mafanikio makubwa ambayo yameiwezesha Tanzania kujiweka katika nafasi nzuri miongoni mwa mataifa yanayojenga mifumo ya kisasa ya ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi. Mafanikio hayo yamepatikana kutokana na uongozi thabiti wa serikali ya awamu ya 6 chini ya Mheshimiwa Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, usimamizi wa Wizara ya Mawasiliano na Teknolojia ya Habari, juhudi za management ya tume, pamoja na ushirikiano mkubwa wa wadau kutoka sekta za umma na binafsi. Hata hivyo, tunatambua kuwa safari bado ni ndefu. Mabadiliko ya teknolojia yanayotokana na matumizi ya akili unde, uchakataji mkubwa wa taarifa, mifumo ya kidijitali inayovuka mipaka ya nchi na ongezeko la matumizi ya huduma za mtandaoni vinaendelea kuleta fursa mpya, lakini pia changamoto mpya. Hivyo ni lazima tuendelee kujenga mifumo inayolinda haki za wananchi bila kuzuia ubunifu, uwekezaji na maendeleo ya teknolojia. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, Bodi ya Tume ya Taarifa Binafsi inaamini kuwa mustakabali wa uchumi wa kidijitali unategemea jambo moja muhimu sana: imani. Wananchi wanahitaji kuwa na imani kubwa taarifa zao zinakusanywa na kutumika kwa uwazi, usalama na kwa madhumuni halali. Taasisi zitajitahidi kuwa na imani kubwa. Kuna mfumo wa kisheria unaoeleweka na unaotekelezeka. Wawekezaji wanahitaji kuwa na imani kubwa Tanzania ina mazingira salama na yanayotabirika kwa uwekezaji wa kidijitali. Kwa sababu hiyo, tunaliona kongamano hili kwa jukwaa muhimu la kujenga maelewano ya pamoja kuhusu namna bora ya kusimamia taarifa binafsi katika zama za sasa na zijazo. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, napenda nami pia kutoa salamu maalum kwa wageni wetu kutoka mamlaka mbalimbali za ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi barani Afrika, hususan Kenya, Uganda, South Sudan na mataifa mengine yaliyoshiriki kongamano hili. Uwepo wenu hapa unaonyesha kwamba Afrika inaendelea kujenga sauti ya pamoja katika kulinda haki za faragha na kuweka mazingira salama ya matumizi ya teknolojia kwa wananchi wake. Tunaamini kuwa ushirikiano huu utaendelea kuimarika na kusaidia kujenga viwango vinavyofanana, kubadilisha uzoefu na kuimarisha uwezo wa taasisi zetu katika kukabiliana na changamoto zinazovuka mipaka ya nchi zetu. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, kauli mbiu ya kongamano hili inasema faragha kama nguzo, ulinzi wa kidijitali jumuisha kuelekea dira ya taifa ya maendeleo 2050. Imekuja katika wakati sahihi tunapoelekea katika utekelezaji wa dira ya taifa ya maendeleo ya mwaka 2050. Ni lazima tuhakikishe kwamba maendeleo ya kidijitali tunayoyajenga yanakwenda sambamba na ulinzi wa haki za wananchi. Dira ya maendeleo tunayokusudia sio ya kuwa na teknolojia nyingi zaidi ya pekee. Ni dira ya kuwa na maendeleo yanayojengwa juu ya misingi ya kuaminika, uwajibikaji, usalama na heshima kwa utu wa binadamu. Kwa hiyo faragha si jambo la pembeni katika maendeleo ya taifa. Faragha ni sehemu ya msingi wa maendeleo hayo. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, kwa niaba ya Bodi ya Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi, ninawahakikishia kuwa tutaendelea kutoa mwelekeo wa kimkakati na usimamizi unaohitajika ili kuhakikisha kuwa Tanzania inaendelea kuwa miongoni mwa mataifa yanayojenga mazingira salama ya kuaminika na jumuiya ya kidijitali. Nawashukuru washiriki wote, wadhamini wote, washirika wa maendeleo, taasisi mbalimbali na management ya tume kwa maandalizi ya kongamano hili, na ni matumaini yangu kuwa majadiliano yatakayofanyika katika siku hizi 3 yatazalisha mapendekezo yatakayochangia kuimarisha utekelezaji wa sheria ya ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi na kuendeleza nafasi ya Tanzania katika uchumi wa kidijitali wa dunia. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, nashukuru sana kwa kunisikiliza. Baada ya maneno haya machache, sasa naomba nikukaribishe Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi utufungulie kongamano hili ambalo ni letu la kwanza la faragha na ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi kwa mwaka huu wa 2026. Karibu sana Mheshimiwa Waziri.
Kae. Habari ya asubuhi. Bwana Mohamed Hamis Abdullah, Katibu Mkuu Wizara ya Mawasiliano na Teknolojia ya Habari, Bwana Nicholas Mkapa, Naibu Katibu Mkuu wa wizara yetu, niseme tu kwamba hawa viongozi wawili ni ndugu zangu na pia rafiki zangu. Tumekutana muda mrefu kwa sababu na mimi niliwahi kuwa naibu katibu mkuu. Kwa hiyo tulikutana huko, tukawa marafiki, tukafanya kazi kwa upendo, hatukuwahi kugombana. Alafu Mungu ametukutanisha tena katika mazingira yale ya urafiki. Kwa hiyo nashukuru sana kwa hilo. Tambua uwepo wa Balozi Adadi Mohamed Rajabu, mwenyekiti wa bodi ya Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi na wajumbe wengine wa bodi wa tume hiyo. Natambua pia uwepo wa Daktari 𝐊𝐼𝐚𝐺𝐷𝐿𝐷𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐼 Mkilia, mkurugenzi mkuu wa Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi. Tambua uwepo wa management ya Wizara ya Mawasiliano na Teknolojia ya Habari pamoja na taasisi zake. Nitambue pia uwepo wa mkurugenzi mkuu wa Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi ya jirani yetu toka Kenya, Bi Immaculate Kasaili, sijui nimetamka jina vizuri, Kasaiti, na pia mkurugenzi mkuu wa Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi ya jirani yetu Uganda, Bwana Beka Bilikuja. Natambua uwepo wa waheshimiwa viongozi wa taasisi za umma na binafsi, wageni mashuhuri kutoka mataifa mbalimbali mliopo, wawakilishi wa mashirika ya kitaifa, kikanda na kitaifa, kimataifa, kikanda na kitaifa, viongozi wa sekta binafsi, maafisa ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi wa taasisi za umma na binafsi, wataalamu wa TEHAMA. Natambua pia kuwepo kwa mkurugenzi mkuu wa Vodacom Bwana Philip Bisime na Jaji Profesa Ubena Agata, waandishi wa habari, ndugu washiriki wote, mabibi na mabwana, Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania. Kwanza kabisa, naomba nianze kwa kumshukuru Mwenyezi Mungu kwa neema zake anazotujalia na kutuwezesha sote kukutana hapa leo katika ufunguzi wa Kongamano la Kwanza la Kitaifa la Faragha na Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi hapa nchini Tanzania. Kwa niaba ya Mheshimiwa 𝐊𝐤𝐺𝐵 Mbelwa Kairuki, mbunge na waziri wa Mawasiliano na Teknolojia ya Habari, ambaye alitamani sana kuwa nasi leo hii, lakini kutokana na mwingiliano wa majukumu yenye umuhimu sawa na kongamano hili, amenielekeza nimwakilishe katika ufunguzi wa kongamano hili muhimu kwa mustakabali wa taifa letu. Pia nitumie nafasi hii kuwakaribisha nyote katika kongamano hili muhimu ambalo litajadili masuala mbalimbali kuhusu ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi. Nimejulishwa kuwa kongamano hili limehudhuriwa na takriban washiriki 800 kutoka ndani na nje ya nchi. Kipekee natambua tena uwepo wa 𝐊𝐼𝐭𝐚𝐺𝐻𝐿𝐷𝐼, mtendaji mkuu wa Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi kutoka nchini Kenya, na Bwana Beka Bilikuja kutoka Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi kutoka nchini Uganda. Karibuni sana. Aidha, nitumie nafasi hii kuwashukuru wadhamini wote wa kongamano hili. Nasema kwa dhati kabisa asanteni sana. Ndugu washiriki, taarifa binafsi ni taarifa yoyote ambayo inamtambulisha mtu. Taarifa hiyo binafsi inapaswa kulindwa ili kuhakikisha inatumiwa kwa matumizi yaliyokusudiwa. Taarifa binafsi isipokusanywa, kuchakatwa, kusafirishwa na kuhifadhiwa kwa mujibu wa sheria na taratibu, inaweza kusababisha madhara makubwa. Nchi nyingi duniani zimeendelea kuweka mifumo ya kisheria na kitaasisi ili kuhakikisha taarifa binafsi zinakusanywa, kuchakatwa, kusafirishwa na kuhifadhiwa kwa misingi na viwango vilivyokubalika kikanda na kimataifa. Ndugu washiriki, kama mnavyofahamu, TEHAMA imeendelea kukua kwa kasi na hivyo kusababisha taarifa hizo kukusanywa, kuchakatwa na kusafirishwa kwa kasi kutoka eneo moja hadi lingine. Na kwa umuhimu huo, imeonekana ni vyema kuwa na mifumo ya kisheria na kitaasisi inayoshabihiana ili kuwezesha utekelezaji wa majukumu ya kitaasisi ndani na nje ya nchi yanayohusiana na taarifa binafsi. Ndugu washiriki, kwa umuhimu huo na makubaliano ya kikanda na kimataifa ambayo Tanzania ni mwanachama, mnamo mwaka 2022 serikali ilitunga Sheria ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi ambapo pamoja na kubainisha misingi muhimu ya kuzingatiwa wakati wa ukusanyaji, uchakataji na usafirishaji wa taarifa binafsi, sheria hiyo imewekwa takwa la kuanzisha Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi ambayo ilizinduliwa rasmi tarehe 3 mwezi wa 4 2024 kwa lengo la kusimamia utekelezaji wa sheria hiyo. Jukumu la tume hii ni kusimamia utekelezaji wa sheria, kusajili wakusanyaji na wachakataji wa taarifa binafsi, kuhamasisha uelewa kwa umma, kushughulikia malalamiko dhidi ya ukiukwaji wa misingi ya ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi, kufanya ukaguzi wa uzingatiaji wa sheria na kuimarisha utamaduni wa ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi na faragha nchini. Katika kipindi cha miaka miwili tangu kuzinduliwa kwake rasmi na Mheshimiwa Rais wa Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania, tume imefanikiwa kuweka misingi muhimu wa utekelezaji wa sheria, kuongeza uelewa kwa umma, kusajili wakusanyaji na wachakataji wa taarifa binafsi nchini, kujenga uwezo wa maafisa ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi na kuimarisha utamaduni wa uwajibikaji katika usimamizi wa taarifa binafsi nchini. Hongereni sana kwa kuwa sehemu ya mafanikio hayo. Ndugu washiriki, kutokana na mafanikio hayo na changamoto chache katika utekelezaji wa sheria, imeonekana ni vyema kuwa na kongamano maalum la masuala ya faragha na ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi kwa lengo la kukutana kwa pamoja na kujadiliana masuala muhimu yanayohusu faragha na ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi na kuwa na mwelekeo wa pamoja kama taifa. Hivyo niipongeze kwa dhati bodi na management ya Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi kwa kuandaa kongamano hili lenye kauli mbiu isemayo faragha kama nguzo, ulinzi wa kidijitali jumuishi kuelekea Dira ya Taifa ya Maendeleo 2050. Ndugu washiriki, kauli mbiu hii inabainisha kuwa faragha si suala la ziada katika maendeleo ya kidijitali, ni sehemu ya msingi wa maendeleo hayo. Tunapojadili dira ya taifa ya maendeleo ya mwaka 2050, ni lazima tutambue kuwa uchumi wa kidijitali tunaotamani hauwezi kujengwa juu ya teknolojia pekee. Unahitaji msingi wa kuaminiana kati ya wananchi, serikali, taasisi za umma na sekta binafsi, na msingi huo hujengwa kupitia mifumo madhubuti ya ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi. Kadri tunavyoendelea kuhamasisha matumizi ya huduma za kidijitali, biashara mtandao, mifumo ya serikali mtandao, akili unde na teknolojia nyingine zinazoibuka, ndivyo wajibu wetu wa kulinda taarifa binafsi za wananchi unavyoongezeka. Ndugu washiriki, kama tunavyojua kuwa kwa sasa huduma nyingi za serikali na taasisi binafsi zinatolewa kwa kutumia mifumo ya TEHAMA, na tayari kumekuwepo na jitihada za kuifanya mifumo hiyo kusomana na kubadilishana taarifa. Na kwa umuhimu huo, ni vyema wakati mifumo hiyo ikibadilishana taarifa kuzingatia misingi ya ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi inayokubalika kitaifa, kikanda na kimataifa, na hivyo imani ya wawekezaji wa ndani na nje ya nchi itaongezeka katika uwekezaji. Ndugu washiriki, nimejulishwa kuwa katika kongamano hili mada mawasiliano na majadiliano kuhusu masuala ya ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi yatajadiliwa kwa siku 2. Hivyo ni rai yangu kuwa kupitia kongamano hili mtajadili na kuibua masuala muhimu yanayohusu ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi, elimu kwa umma na uzingatiaji wa sheria bila shuruti. Kwa msingi huo, kongamano hili la kwanza la kitaifa la faragha na ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi limekusudia kuifanya Tanzania kuwa jukwaa la kitaifa na kikanda la kubadilishana uzoefu, kujifunza na kujenga ushirikiano katika masuala ya faragha na ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi. Aidha, kongamano hili litatoa fursa ya kujadili utekelezaji wa sheria, changamoto zinazojitokeza, ubunifu wa kiteknolojia, pamoja na mchango wa ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi katika kujenga uchumi wa kidijitali wenye kuaminika kuelekea dira ya taifa ya maendeleo ya taifa. Ndugu washiriki, hadi kufikia Mei 2026, takriban taasisi 14,000 za umma na binafsi zimesajiliwa. Taasisi hizo ni pamoja na kampuni za mawasiliano, taasisi za afya, taasisi za elimu, kampuni za bima, biashara za kidijitali, taasisi za fedha, mamlaka za serikali na mashirika mbalimbali ya kukusanya au kuchakata taarifa binafsi nchini. Ndugu washiriki, sekta binafsi inapaswa kuona uzingatiaji wa sheria ya ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi si kama wajibu wa kisheria pekee, bali kama sehemu ya kujenga imani ya wateja, ushindani wa kibiashara na ukuaji endelevu wa taasisi hizo. Taasisi za umma zinapaswa kuendelea kuwa mfano wa kuigwa katika utekelezaji wa sheria hii, hususan wakati serikali ikiendelea kutekeleza ajenda ya mfumo ya kidijitali, kusomana na kubadilishana taarifa kwa usalama na ufanisi. Aidha, taasisi za elimu na utafiti zina jukumu kubwa la kuandaa wataalamu wa kizazi kijacho wenye uelewa wa masuala ya faragha, maadili ya kidijitali na usimamizi wa taarifa binafsi. Vile ushirikiano wa kikanda na kimataifa unapaswa kuendelea kuimarishwa ili kuwezesha mtiririko salama wa taarifa kuvuka mipaka kwa kuzingatia viwango vya kimataifa na maslahi ya nchi yetu. Ndugu washiriki, kimataifa, ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi umeendelea kuwa msingi wa uchumi wa kidijitali na kujenga imani kwa wananchi na wawekezaji. Nchi nyingi zimeweka mifumo madhubuti ya sheria, usimamizi wa mamlaka huru za ulinzi wa taarifa, uwajibikaji wa taarifa, tathmini za athari za faragha, uteuzi wa maafisa ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi, pamoja na ushirikiano wa kikanda na kimataifa katika kushughulikia changamoto za teknolojia mpya kama akili unde, tarakishi wingu au cloud computing na data kubwa au big data. Tanzania imeendelea kujifunza na kuendana na viwango hivyo vya kimataifa huku ikizingatia mazingira yake ya kitaifa. Ndugu washiriki, Tume ya Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi si chombo cha usimamizi wa sheria pekee, bali ni taasisi muhimu katika kujenga imani ya wananchi katika uchumi wa kidijitali. Imani hiyo ndio itakayowezesha wananchi kutumia huduma za kidijitali kwa uhakika, taasisi kutoa huduma kwa ufanisi zaidi, na wawekezaji kufanya maamuzi ya kuwekeza kwa kujiamini. Tunapojadili mustakabali wa teknolojia, ni lazima tukumbuke kuwa maendeleo ya kidijitali bila ulinzi wa faragha ni maendeleo yasiyo na msingi imara. Teknolojia inapaswa kumlinda binadamu, kuimarisha haki zake na kuboresha maisha yake. Ni matarajio yangu kuwa kongamano hili litatoa mapendekezo yatakayosaidia kuimarisha utekelezaji wa sheria ya ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi, kuongeza uelewa wa jamii, kuimarisha ushirikiano wa wadau na kujenga mifumo imara wa ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi unaoendana na malengo ya Dira ya Taifa ya Maendeleo ya 2050. Ndugu washiriki, kabla ya kuhitimisha hotuba yangu, nichukue fursa hii kutoa maelekezo yafuatayo. Kwanza, taasisi zote zinazokusanya na kuchakata taarifa binafsi zihakikishe zinazingatia kikamilifu masharti ya sheria. 2, ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi uonekane kama sehemu ya utawala bora na si jukumu la tume pekee. 3, sekta binafsi na umma ziendelee kuwekeza katika mifumo salama ya usimamizi wa taarifa na kujenga uwezo wa watumishi. 4, tume iendelee kutoa elimu kwa wananchi, kufanya ukaguzi wa uzingatiaji na kuimarisha ushirikiano wa kikanda na kimataifa. Na mwisho, matokeo ya kongamano yawe chanzo cha sera, ubunifu na hatua zinazojenga uchumi wa kidijitali wenye kuaminika na wenye ushindani. Ndugu washiriki, historia ya uchumi wa kidijitali haitaandikwa na nchi zilizo na teknolojia nyingi zaidi pekee, bali na nchi ambazo zimeamua kujenga imani kubwa zaidi kwa wananchi wake. Tanzania imechagua njia hiyo. Tumechagua kujenga maendeleo yanayolinda haki, utu, usalama na faragha ya kila mwananchi. Kwa wageni wetu kutoka nje ya Tanzania, ninawakaribisha sana. Mbali na kushiriki kongamano hili, ninawahimiza pia kupata fursa ya kutembelea vivutio vya utalii ambavyo taifa letu limebarikiwa kuwa navyo, ikiwemo Zanzibar, hifadhi za taifa na maeneo mengine yenye kuvutia duniani. Kwa maneno hayo sasa, nina heshima na furaha kubwa kutangaza rasmi kuwa Kongamano la Kwanza la Kitaifa la Faragha na Ulinzi wa Taarifa Binafsi la mwaka 2026 limefunguliwa rasmi. Ninawatakia washiriki wote majadiliano yenye tija na kongamano lenye mafanikio makubwa. Asanteni sana kwa kunisikiliza. Kazi na utu.
Jamani, makofi mengine kwa mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi. Tunakushukuru sana Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, naomba tuweze kukaa. May we be seated please. Mheshimiwa mgeni rasmi, kwanza tunakushukuru sana. Sijaandaliwa kutoa vote of thanks. Kwa Kiswahili wanasema salamu shukurani, sijui kama ni Kiswahili fasaha, lakini kwa niaba tu ya viongozi walioko hapa, lakini na washiriki wa kongamano hilo, tunakushukuru kwa maneno yako mazuri ambayo yanaenda kutupa mahali pa kuanzia wakati tunaanza kongamano letu. Najua ratiba yako ni ngumu, lakini tukuombe kwa hisani yako uturuhusu tupate picha chache za ukumbusho. Ni picha kama 4 tu, lakini kwa bahati nzuri tutazipiga pale nje, na ukimaliza basi viongozi watakuongoza jinsi ya kuendelea. Tutakuwa na picha na wakuu wa taasisi za udhibiti pamoja na nyinyi mliokaa kwenye high table, ambapo watajiunga dada yetu, dada Immaculate na kaka Beka, lakini baadaye speaker wanaotoka nje na ndani ya nchi, na baadaye tutakuwa na bodi na management, baadaye sponsors wetu, lakini kamati ya maandalizi itakuwa mwisho. Naomba wale watu wa itifaki waanze kuwaongoza kwanza wakuu wa taasisi pamoja na speakers wa ndani na nje. Tutatokea mlango ule kwa ajili ya kupiga picha kule mbele, halafu viongozi watafuata. Kwa hiyo picha hizo nilizotaja, bodi na management pamoja na kamati ya maandalizi, wengine naomba tukae tuendelee na mkutano. Yes. Kwa hiyo naomba speakers wote tuanze kwenda kule, halafu high table itakuja mwisho kwa ajili ya hiyo picha ya kwanza. Ndugu viongozi, wakati tunaenda kupiga picha, sisi wengine tutakuwa tunaanza na mada yetu ya kwanza, lakini tutasubiri kidogo maandalizi yakiwa yanaendelea. Spika wa kwanza, nitaomba picha hiyo kama ikiwezekana kikombe hicho kikuepuke ili uweze kuja kufanya maandalizi ya pepa yako. Ladies and gentlemen, the second photo will be for you. Please, if you may join the guest of honor when he leaves for the photo session. Nimeomba tu makundi hayo machache yatatuwakilisha, lakini baadaye tutakuwa na picha na viongozi wetu walioko hapa. Baada ya hapo watu wa protocol na hawa wote naomba watangulia, alafu high table ndio itakuja nyuma. Your staff are safe, don't worry.
wa taarifa binafsi DPC. Faragha yako ni wajibu wetu. DPC ni tume ya ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi iliyoanzishwa kusimamia utekelezaji wa sheria ya ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi, kusajili wakusanyaji na wachakataji wa taarifa binafsi, kuchunguza na kushughulikia malalamiko juu ya ukiukwaji wa ulinzi wa taarifa binafsi. DPC kufanya tafiti na kufuatilia maendeleo ya teknolojia ya uchakataji wa taarifa, kuimarisha mashirikiano na nchi nyingine. Asante Rais Samia kwa kutuongoza DPC. Hongera Wizara ya Mawasiliano na Teknolojia ya Habari. Asante Rais Samia kwa kutuongoza DPC. Hongera watumishi wa DPC.
in Tanzania aspiration under Vision 2050. As we all know, the Vision 2050 was inaugurated by our president recently, and this is the focus of our country as we want to attain the $1 trillion economy by 2050. Now, the first session will dwell on the role of personal data protection in advancing the digital economy towards Vision 2050. To deliver this important strategic presentation, it's my pleasure to invite our distinguished representative from the National Planning Commission. His biography, Mr. 𝐁𝐢𝐴𝐼𝐻𝐿 𝐁𝐢𝐴𝐼𝐻𝐿, is the acting manager for infrastructure and services at the National Planning Commission, and an economist with over a decade of experience in strategic development, planning and economic policies, infrastructure development and public investment. He has played a key role in shaping Tanzania national development policies and long-term planning agenda through his work at the National Planning Commission and the Ministry of Finance and Planning. With a master's degree in development economics from Erasmus University, Rotterdam, Netherlands, Mr. Mwabeza brings extensive expertise in evidence-based policy analysis, strategic planning, and sustainable development, supporting Tanzania's journey towards the Vision 2050. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Josiah Mwabeza, our esteemed speaker. Karibu sana tafadhali.
Good morning, Honorable Ambassador Dad Rajabu, the Chairperson of the Board of the Personal Data Protection Commission, the Director General of the Personal Data Protection Commission, members of the Diplomatic Corps and other participants present today. I would like to observe to stand of the protocol that was observed by previous speaker during the opening proceeding. I think I would like to begin my remarks by first acknowledging and convey my congratulations to the Ministry of Communication and the Information Technology, as well as the Personal Data Development Protection Commission, for holding this first ever data privacy annual conference. So I think I would like to, for all us in attendance today, distinguished participants, to have a very big round of applause for the Commission for this very important initiative. Nilikuwa naomba kwanza to convey our congratulations for this very big initiative, and it sends a message that the country at large, but the government does value the issue of privacy and give it at its utmost consideration. That is first, before I go to the presentation. But also, I would like to congratulate the organizer of this conference on the timing of the conference itself, because first, I think 2 days from now we'll be starting the new financial year for the fiscal year 26-27. And that marks two critical things. First, I think a week back, the finance bill was passed by the National Assembly, and one of the key provisions of the finance bill is the amendment of Section 3 of the Electronic Transaction Act, which empowers the minister to designate certain payment to be required to be done electronically. So that has a huge implication in terms of the issue of the data privacy. So I think the timing is very critical in that regard. But also the timing of the conference is also critical, as you have heard during the opening remarks. I think the word Tanzania Development Vision has been mentioned more than 10 times by all the speakers, starting from the moderator of the conference, going all the way to the guest of honor. So, and in terms of the planning cycle of the Tanzania, the 1st of July will be the first day of implementing the new Tanzania Development Vision. So, there couldn't be any other better timing of this conference, because the digital transformation is one of the critical agenda under the Tanzania Development Vision 2050. And I think going forward, I'll be mentioning DILA 2050 to refer to the Tanzania Development Vision. So for my Swahili speakers in attendance, whenever you hear DILA 2050, you have to know that I'm referring to the Tanzania Development Vision 2050. But also, third is about the theme of the conference. I think it well encapsulates the Tanzania transformation direction from the digital economy point of view. So I think the theme could be more relevant to the session and the development aspiration of the country. So to begin with, my topic sort of sets the tone for what will be deliberated in the coming 2 to 3 days. And mindful of the fact that we are behind schedule, I'll try to be more direct and cover some of the key aspects. I will focus mostly on the digital transformation agenda as it relates to the Tanzania DILA 2050, but also how the digital economy advancement and the transformation drives national development. And then I will try to link it to the law digital governance and data protection plays as a foundation enabler of digital transformation. I will skip that given the time, but I am from the National Planning Commission, and the National Planning Commission is the public entity that is responsible for strategic development planning and the socio-economic advisory established through the National Planning Commission Act 127 of 2023. So it's an independent department under the President's Office Planning and Investment. It's a public entity that advises and plans on behalf of the government and try to bring about socio-economic transformation and development prosperity. So if I have to summarize in a single slide about the topic, is about how do we look at the whole issue of data protection and the sound governance frameworks. That means trusted digital system, that means data governance, and that means data protection. How does that sound data protection frameworks, how does that how does sound data protection and governance, how does it drive digital transformation, as well as how does that drive attainment of national development? And I think the best way to do this is by going on the reverse order, by first communicating how does the digital transformation agenda is covered under the current DIRA framework, DIRA 2050 framework, but also how does the digital economy advancement and transformation accelerate development, and then linking that all the way back to the role the data protection plays in advancing digital economy. First, maybe just to set up the context, as I've mentioned earlier, the country did last year adopted the Tanzania Development Vision 2050, whose main goal is to transform Tanzania into an upper middle income economy that is self-reliant, that is prosperity, that is inclusive. And critical to that is a foundation, which is peace, security, and good governance. But supporting that foundation are three key pillars. The first one is strong and competitive economy, which covers the key aspect of the economic transformation. But the second one is the issue of human capabilities and social development. These, among other things, including availability and accessibility of critical social services, matters related to social protection, as well as human capital. And apart from that is the issue of environmental integrity and the climate change resilience. We understand that we live in time that many of our economic and social operations are actually impacted by climate change phenomena. So in order to make sure that the development process does consider future generation, and also our activities are not hampered by climate change threats, one of the key pillars of that vision is having climate change resilience. Moving next to that, I would like to highlight about the goals and the target of the vision. There are 4 high-level goals and 18 targets. But as you can see, one of them is having a digitally empowered society. So I think data protection is critical in the DIRA agenda, because one of the goals of the DIRA 2050 is having a digitally empowered society. And you cannot have digitally empowered society if people don't have trust in the way their data are used. So DIRA does have one goal on digital transformation, and it is very crucial that the issue of data protection and sound governance is given a priority, because it does facilitate digital transformation. Then coming again to the digital transformation agenda as it relates to the Tanzania Development Vision, as you can see, there are 5 drivers to the Tanzania Development Vision 2050, and these are the ones that do bring about a transformation through productivity, innovation, as well as efficiency. And one of those 5 drivers for the Tanzania Development Vision 2050 is digital transformation. Others, of course, are related to the energy, integrated logistics, research and development, as well as the science, technology, and innovation. So, one of the key drivers of attaining the Vision 2050 is the issue of digital transformation. And in this regards, it's quite important that the issue of data governance and sound data protection is given utmost priority, because it does facilitate one of the key drivers of the Tanzania Development Vision 2050. Then coming back to how the digital economy and the transformation, it does drive Tanzania development achievement. I would like to begin by noting that the digital economy has been a very critical part of the socioeconomic transformation of the country. But unfortunately, Tanzania included, most countries have not been in a position to actually capture the size of the digital economy itself. In terms of our national output, because you cannot have meaningful intervention if you don't actually measure what is the size of the digital economy. So I wanted to point that out. Digital economy is actually quite large and impactful than it is actually represented in terms of national economic statistics, particularly the contribution to the gross domestic product. But we are not measuring it adequately or appropriately, that is one. But also, we have to be mindful of the role it plays in driving the development process. If I have to put it in a very simple sentence, the digital economy does drive development through three critical items. First is through productivity and efficiency gains. As we know, adopting digital solution does drive productivity and efficiency gains, but also it does drive inclusion, because one of the survey on for example, on access to the financial services, the FinScope survey of 2023, did note that the form of financial inclusion has increased from 65% to 76% between 2017 and 2023. The access to form of financial services has increased to 76% from 65% in 2017, largely because of the non-banking financial solutions such as mobile money. And I think we are true beneficiary of that transformation. So that does drive inclusion, but also it improves accessibility to some of the critical services. So through this transmission mechanism, you find that the digital economy does contribute to growth of entrepreneurship, to growth of economic activities, even to growth of employment creation. Now, largely percent of people, especially youth, does find it quite crucial in driving an accelerated development process, and critical to that transformation is having a very important foundation enabler, of which sound data governance and the data protection frameworks are very, very important. So if you look at the whole issue of data governance and protection frameworks, you find that it does facilitate adoption of the digital solutions. It does facilitate adoption of digital solutions, that is one aspect, but also it leads to innovation and even better public service delivery. That is also very critical, and also it leads to more use of data. So very sound digital governance and the protection frameworks, governance and the protection frameworks, it does facilitate digital transformation and digital economic advancement by ensuring there's the trust in the way people are using data, and there's a confidence in the way people are using data, but also there is security in terms of the data usage, especially from the corporate standpoint, because most of the business does want to ensure that their data that drive their decisions, that drive their revenue, are secured and are used as per the intended objective. So it's quite crucial and important to build in place frameworks that support sound data protection and governance frameworks. And this does enable adoption and advancement of digital economy, and then in turn, digital economy advancement and transformation does result into attainment of the development that we aspire, which includes some of the goals that have been stated in the Tanzania Development Vision 2050. Yeah, thank you. So I think I would like to highlight the linkage between the three in that simple graphics. First, we start by using or putting in place frameworks that are facilitative of sound data protection and governance. These include those three items: the digital system, trusted digital system, as well as data protection. This in turn does translate into, through the ministry, through the commission and other key stakeholders, needed to ensure that they put in place mechanism that facilitate having strong and sound digital protection and governance frameworks. And these in return will lead to advancement in the digital economy as well as transformation of the digital sector. And it's through the transformation of the digital sector, I think, will result into desired or positive development outcomes. And one of those desired development outcomes are some of the goals and targets that are outlined in the Tanzania Development Vision 2050. To name the few, one of the highlighted by the Honorable Minister is attaining $1 trillion economy. But apart from that, there is an issue of increasing per capita income of the citizen to at least $7,000 per year. So it's quite important that through this conference, we come with the recommendation, is highlighted by the speech by the Honorable Deputy Minister. We come with the recommendation that facilitate or inform the government in taking appropriate intervention to strengthening data protection, privacy and governance mechanism, but also attract investment in the digital sector, but investment in the economy at large, and stimulate economic activity resulting into attainment of the goals stated in the vision. With those few remarks, I would like to end my presentation here. And as I said at the beginning, it's quite important that this conference is taking place at this juncture. And I would like to call upon you stakeholders to provide the ultimate support and contribution toward facilitating, strengthening the privacy and data protection in Tanzania. Asanteni sana kwa kunisikiliza. Nashukuru sana.
Another round of applause for our presenter. Thank you very much, Mr. Josiah Mwabeza, for your insightful presentation. I'm sure for the participant, the discussion has clearly demonstrated that data protection is far more than just a regulatory obligation. It is an economic enabler. It builds trust. I love the word trust. It is strengthened digital governance, as he said at the end, but it attracts investment and creates the confidence required for innovation to flourish. Those are precisely the conversation that this conference seeks to advance for the next 2 days. Now we are ready for our second keynote address, and this comes from the Vodacom CEO. As the society becomes increasingly connected and digital transition becomes part of everyday life, personal data has emerged as one of the world's most valuable strategic assets. You'll agree with me, protecting that asset is essential for economic growth. If we are really looking for a $1 trillion economy in 2050, then the growth, financial inclusion, and the sustainable digital transformation should be taken care of and looked at with a very big eye. Now, the 𝐊𝐤𝐴, the CV, the bio is very long, but he is the Chief Executive Officer of Vodacom Tanzania PLC, one of Tanzania's leading telecommunication and financial services companies. Since taking on the role in October 2022, he has led Vodacom into continued growth in connectivity, digital services, and financial inclusion. Even in the very rural areas in Tanzania, Vodacom has created an environment where the inclusion has met all the citizens of this country. Mr. Arts and Social Science from Makerere University, Kampala, so he's another brother association.
Okay, now I'm standing between yourselves and the first break, so maybe we should do some mazoezi and stretch up a bit after sitting for so long. But hopefully, I'll be able to keep you awake this morning. The chairman, on behalf of Vodacom, privacy, the role of privacy in the private sector, government, or individuals in protecting that data and making sure that each one of us contributes towards sustainably promoting personal data protection. So before we talk about personal data, think about today. And I think the previous speaker, Mr. Mwabaza, did use this allusion when he said some of you probably hailed a ride here or paid with your phone. You enter an office building, you leave your name, phone number, and ID. And if you're a Gen Z, you join a TikTok challenge, and every click, like, or share leaves a digital footprint. You're at Kariakor, and you read your phone number out to someone so that you can send them money on M-Pesa. These feel like ordinary moments, but each one creates data, and when combined, that data becomes incredibly valuable. So my presentation today is about the millions of transactions and interactions that shape our daily lives, both online and offline. And the real question is, how much of our offline economy can we safely bring online to unlock the ambitions of Vision 2050? How do we treat personal data as a national asset while managing the risks before they become tomorrow's challenges? So, the one idea. Here is the whole talk in one line. A cashless economy grows only as fast as people trust it. And I think the previous speaker did allude to the whole notion of trust. And around the world, more than half of the people now avoid an app or a service because they worry about their privacy. And the third feel they've lost control of their own information. In the payments business, that hesitation has a very simple name, cash. When people hesitate, when people don't trust, when people face friction, when people's data is compromised, the natural reaction is to go offline and go back into cash. And at Vodacom, we see the other side of that coin every day. When customers trust how we handle their data, they transact more, they save more, they borrow more. That trust is the real foundation of Vision 2050. Build it, and everything else compounds. You lose it, and no amount of technology will save the plan. So what's the scale of what's at stake? Let this number breathe for a second. Nearly 200 trillion shillings moved through mobile money in Tanzania in a single year. That's almost 30% last year. That is not a pilot. That is a country already running on digital rails. And almost every one of those shillings carries someone's personal data with it, with their identity, their history, their trust. M-Pesa is one of the engines behind this. In the last year alone, our M-Pesa transaction values grew by nearly a third. But here is what I want: this room to growth comes with accountability. And behind these values are people. 63 million active mobile money accounts in Tanzania. 6.4 billion transactions a year, about 17 million every single day, and 1.3 million merchants, a number that doubled in just 12 months. Picture our mama mboga selling vegetables who now takes payments on her phone, or a mangi in a village who joined the formal economy without ever filling in a bank form. Each of those is a new data relationship. And at Vodacom, we've built more than 670,000 M-Pesa merchant points to make it possible. The opportunity and responsibility to grow exactly the same curve. Vision 2050 is about widening the on-ramp until no Tanzanian is left standing outside the digital economy, and doing it in a way they can trust. And Africa is leading this. Now lift your eyes beyond Tanzania across sub-Saharan Africa. $1.4 trillion, that's not us watching the market, that's us carrying it from Cape to Cairo. And this GDP is not just about transactions. It isn't money just moving around, it's money being data protection can bring the last hardest group in and bring them in safely. So how does data become value? Let me make the idea concrete. Personal data is what lets a stranger be verified, a payment clear, a loan be granted on history alone, or a fraud to be stopped before it hurts someone. But notice the word in the middle, trust. Data only becomes of value if it passes through trust. Without it, data is just a liability dressed up as an asset. This is why at Vodacom, privacy is not a department we visit at the end. It is designed into every product from the first day to one standard across every market that we run. That discipline is the bridge between today and 2050. Get the middle step right, trust and data turns into inclusion, into credit, into growth. You skip it, and the whole chain breaks or collapses. And now the uncomfortable truth, and I want us to sit with this for a moment. 1 in 2 people now avoid a digital service because they are worried about their privacy. 1 in 3 feel they have no control over their own data. These are not strangers. These are our customers. These are our citizens. And in our world, every ounce of that distrust pushes people back to cash. The good news is that trust can be rebuilt deliberately. And at Vodacom, we do it in plain language. We do it in plain language privacy notices, real channels for people to exercise their rights, and customer education, not as a favor, but as how we operate. Closing this trust gap, in my view, is the single most important enabler for Vision 2050. It is the difference between a digital Tanzania that people can embrace and one they could quietly avoid. So how do we turn data into trust? How do we turn data into an asset? Maybe 4 things. We identify, we verify who someone is so they can be trusted to transact. And then we protect, we use data to catch fraud and defend people. And the evidence shows the firms who do this well dramatically cut their losses. And then 3, we personalize, we make services more useful, but always with the customer's consent, emphasis, always with the customer's consent and clear choices. And then lastly, we include through, for example, open savings, credit and payments so that people who are locked out can now participate. And this is the Vodacom playbook, run to a single global standard. And every one of those 4 only creates value if the customer trusts us with it. And that is the operating model that delivers Vision 2050. And now that trust has been written into the law with the Personal Data Protection Act, Tanzania became the 35th African country to pass a standalone data protection law, giving more than 63 million people real rights over their information. I know some see regulation maybe as a brake to innovation, but I see it as an opposite. Strong, clear rules are the standard that lets trust innovation scale. That's why Vodacom Tanzania was among the first companies in this country to comply. We treated it as leadership, not as paperwork. And for a group that already answers regulators in Dar es Salaam, Johannesburg, and London, rigorous compliance is simply how we run, and we can help regulators harmonize toward it. As partners of progress, we exist to build Tanzania as a trusted hub for data and trade across the region, not a walled garden, but a gateway. Tanzania is part of a connected world. Each payment, purchase, message, business relationship increasingly crosses borders, making personal data the passport of the digital economy. The challenge is no longer enterprise-wide connectivity. It's enabling millions of citizens to participate safely. That's why we need an environment that empowers trusted enterprises to be the gateway between people and the global digital economy. The average data breach in the world now costs about $4.5 million, and 7 in 10 organizations globally that are breached suffer serious disruption. But in an economy as connected as the one we are building, the real danger isn't in the cost of one incident. It's that a single failure can ripple across the whole system. One honest mistake, one careless transfer, and trust everywhere takes a hit. We are ISO 27001 certified, among the first few, a result of global best practices and shared with us from London to Cairo to Johannesburg. This is why Vodacom strengthening cybersecurity and putting governance around AI is not a side gig, it's a board level priority. It's a board level priority because our scale obliges us to lead on defense. Let me turn to AI, because it's the risk-changing fastest of all. The World Economic Forum's 2026, these systems are hungry for data. They are often trained on information that was scraped from the web or taken in an earlier breach and then reused for purposes the person never agreed to. In the language of our own law, that breaks 2 basic principles: purpose limitation and data minimization. The principles written in the Tanzania Personal Data Protection Act, a digital ID, and a mobile wallet, which means whether that's a mama getting a mother safely to a clinic or extending coverage to a village that had none.
Capacity, promoting compliance, and fostering a culture of accountability in the digital age. Yet every journey has been different from the Kenyan perspective, from the Ugandan perspective, but from Tanzania perspective. And Tanzania being the last born of the frameworks, the next session will offer us a rare opportunity to hear directly from the leaders who have been at the forefront of the journey. This is our leadership dialogue. And before I invite them to come and take their seat here, allow me to introduce them to you, but please remain seated until when I ask you to come forward. The dialogue will be on our journey, our progress, insight and milestone in privacy and personal data protection in East African community. I have the distinct honor of welcoming the 3 distinguished leaders who have shaped how the region look at personal data in their frameworks. First, before I ask him to join here, is our very own Dr. 𝐓𝐴𝐻𝐿 𝐵𝐴𝐻𝐿, the Director General of Personal Data Protection Commission, United Republic of Tanzania. Allow me to introduce Dr. 𝐓𝐴𝐻𝐿 𝐵𝐴𝐻𝐿, who is a PhD holder, the Founding Director General of the Personal Data Protection Commission of Tanzania, and he has led the implementation of Tanzania Personal Data Protection Framework in the country journey towards a trusted digital economy. With a distinguished experience in law enforcement, cybersecurity, governance, and public administration, he has played a pivotal role in establishing Tanzania privacy and data protection ecosystem and strengthening public trust in the digital age. As the host of the first Tanzania Annual Data Privacy Conference and the Commission's founding Director General, Dr. 𝐓𝐴𝐻𝐿 champions privacy as a cornerstone of digital transformation, innovation, and sustainable development. He also represents Tanzania in international, regional initiative on data governance, cross-border data flows, and responsible digital cooperation. A round of applause as I welcome Dr. 𝐓𝐴𝐻𝐿 to the seat. Karibu sana digital recognition. Last but not least is Mr. Beka Birikuja, the National Director, Personal Data Protection Office of the Republic of Uganda. Mr. Beka Birikuja is the National Personal Data Protection Director, Uganda Personal Data Protection Office, where he leads the implementation and enforcement of the country's data protection and privacy framework. A seasoned legal and regulatory expert, he has extensive experience in data protection, cybersecurity, digital regulation, and information technology governance. He represents Uganda in regional and international policy, forums in privacy, artificial intelligence and data governance, including the Global Privacy Assembly, the African Union, the East African Community. An internationally certified privacy professional, FIP, CIPP, /E, CIPM, Mr. Birikuja is widely recognized for advancing data protection across border regulatory cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give our distinguished Mr. Birikuja a hand of applause as he joins the other chief executive officers. Jamani, makofi hayatoshi. Some more. These are the leaders of East Africa privacy and data protection frameworks. And imagine the old man, Innocent Mungi, has the privilege of moderating their session. My dear bosses, your institutions have each played a pivotal role in shaping privacy governance in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. Today, we look forward to learning from your experiences, understanding, and milestones you have achieved. Let's begin our conversation. And I have an icebreaker for you. Oh, can I have microphone, please? Kaka vipi? I was excited so much that I forgot that they need microphone. But as DGs, you can imagine they started giving me instruction. That's the good about being a leader. Unatoa order, mic ziko wapi? I would like to begin with a simple question that takes us back to where this journey began in your respective countries. And I want to each panelist for 1 minute, looking back at your country's journey in privacy and personal data protection, what achievement makes you most proud and why? And I will start with Madam Kaisi, please. Kenya.
Asante sana moderator Innocent. Sita jaribu kuongea Kiswahili ambayo si sanifu kwa sababu naweza acha kicheko katika huyu mjadala wa kuhusu maneno ya data protection. wacha niongee Kiingereza ukinikubalisha. I really thank you. Niseme waziri ambaye the assistant minister and all protocols observed, and our host Emmanuel. I want to thank you most sincerely for inviting us to be part of this conversation. It's always a great pleasure to have conversation around data protection. Just going direct to your question about where did we start. Many times when you sit on the point of reflection on start, we started with no desk, just like Emmanuel will tell you and Becca will tell you. Operationalizing the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, which means getting basic things like a desk, getting an office, was a big achievement for us. And even with that, there was also the issue around getting human resource, because initially we had people deployed and seconded. So even getting a staff establishment from Public Service Commission then sets the pace, because like we say in leadership, you must get people in the right bus and in the right seat. So if you don't get the right people, then you have a problem. Of course, then we had funding from the British High Commission to develop a strategic plan. And the strategic plan, which was our initial one, was centered around strengthening data protection and governance in the country. We also, in that strategic plan, because the strategic plan is what opens doors for you, and I'm so happy that the first key speaker was from planning. Because if you don't plan, you're planning to fail. So if you see at a national level, Tanzania is already giving data protection at that high pitch. Planning become a fundamental issue. So without a strategic plan, then you can't move. The other thing we did was, and we are coming towards election, was developing guidance notes. We came with guidance notes on different industry. At that point, digital lenders were the most problematic, so we had guidance notes on digital lenders. Elections were problematic, so we gave a guidance on election. And of course, without a budget, then you can't move. So initially, we started a budget of 14 million Kenya shillings. It's grown by 2,000%. We are now at 800 million. So that having a strategic plan in a budget helps you to operationalize an office. The other thing is stakeholder engagement. We came in at a point of COVID, so we embraced online conversation and bringing people, all stakeholder. The thing about data protection and even cyber security and where the world is going, it's no longer a know-it-all of one sector. It's one of the discipline that cuts across. It's not, when it is defined in law, you also must understand the tech aspect of it. So in that case also, having an open door policy where you bring on board stakeholders, then you're able to appreciate what else is happening. Then we embarked on a capacity building. We realized at the point we didn't have capacity to actually train everyone. We were getting many requests. So we entered into a partnership with Kenya School of Government, where we trained and we continue to train public officers. And this is something that continues. Then the other thing we did was to automate our processes. Okay. I would imagine we now at 20,000 registration. Each person applying to be a data controller has a collection of documents. I can only imagine how much in terms of warehousing this would be. So automating that process helped us. And of course, with all this, we also made sure we had e-board. That's where we hold our meetings. What that gives you flexibility. You don't need people to come physically. We make sure people can file complaints online, and also our ERP systems. Those helps us in terms of flexibility. And finally, as I conclude, we went out of our way to get international recognition, join the Global Privacy Assembly, join the Network for African Data Protection, which my colleagues are part of. What international recognition does for a country is it sets you up in terms of getting conversations on what is happening globally. If you allow me, I'll stop there for now.
Okay,
I know I've said a lot, but thank you.
Asante sana. Becca, please, if you may take the floor as well. just the journey as Uganda went through it.
Thank you. I would like to also pass on my appreciation to Dr. Mkilia for inviting us and having this conversation to be back to Tanzania. Unfortunately, Uganda, we always struggle with Swahili, so I would have wanted to say a word in Swahili, but I may end up saying something else. Otherwise, I would have said habari, and it may be something totally different. But anyway, the journey for Uganda is not very different from what Immaculate has talked about, but ours to give it a more nuance of what exactly happened. So in government, you budget for what you're going to do the following year, a year before. So as the Personal Data Protection Office, we started at the start of a financial year. So the best that they could do was to recruit 3 staff and pay our salaries. So we had 0 budget. So you can imagine starting an office, or my predecessor, who is now in judiciary, Honorable Lady Justice, she started the office with 0 budget, but the public was demanding. So the achievement of our journey was that due to the work that we are doing, again, we also developed a strategic plan. One of our key achievements was collaboration, because we are able to achieve a lot more because we collaborated with civil society, private sector, and other government agencies to drive awareness and also to drive registrations as well, because other government agencies included the requirement to register with us in their licensing requirements. So that was a very big achievement for us with 0 budget, whereby at least we started the office and it was up and running. And also the other was about 1.5 years after starting the office, we did a national survey, again with another government agencies, and we established that there were only 13% of Ugandans that were aware of even the Data Protection and Privacy Act. So when we did another, the numbers had greatly improved. So it's something else which we call an achievement as well, whereby even in universities, we had people requesting for privacy awareness sessions, guest lectures, but most importantly, getting complaints, people asserting their rights. And now when we started getting the complaints, again, something that we are also happy about, that we can call an achievement, that the law started being enforced. And it wasn't just enforced against the small players or actors in the country. Again, similar to Kenya, we still have a big problem of digital money lenders, and these were abusing the privacy of the individuals. But also we were happy that the law was also being enforced against the big players, entities that had budgets that were even bigger than our GDP as a country, especially the big tech. And they complied with the law. I'll end with the achievement which is shared amongst the commissioners here, that in East Africa, we have 8 partner states, but I'll speak to some of the things that we saw from our registration. Now, when we removed, because under Uganda's registration, you're required as an entity to tell us where you transfer the data to. Many of the entities were transferring the data mainly to Kenya, rather UK and US, because that's where the infrastructure was. But when you remove those 2 countries, we actually noted that most of the data was being transferred to countries in the EAC, in Kenya, in Tanzania, but also in DRC. So when the discussions were started around how do we have a common, harmonized data protection law, we participated, and I'm happy at that time. The conversation actually started when we were in Kenya. It was a session of this kind where we sat down and said, but as East Africa, what can we do to have a harmonized law? And just this week here in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam, these discussions have progressed, whereby we now have principles, we have a clear direction on how we can create what you can call a harmonized data protection and privacy environment in the East African community. So those are the things that I'm very proud of, what we've been able to do individually, but most importantly, what we've been able to do as a group, and a group of East Africans with shared culture, attitudes around privacy, and we believe a lot more will be done at a better stage. Thank you.
Asante. Thank you very much, Mr. Becker. Dr. Mkilia, what about you? What are you proud of and why?
Thank you very much. In East Africa, we were the last to establish the commission. And it happened, it was me to establish it.
Yes.
The most shocking day was the first day when I was told, now you will be the acting director general to establish the personal data protection, which to me, it was totally Chinese. And another shocking thing was the instrument which I'm giving you today is only these three piece of papers, the Act and the 2 regulations. And then I was informed we need result. You can decide yourself either to lies where I met my sister Immaculate. And on the delegation, considering my background is military, so I could not know who is who and who is senior to each other, and then we had to go. But after we were there, the first comfort I get on my 4th day, we talked with the Immaculate, and he asked if I wanted to establish the commission. What should I do? Then I could get the story how they started, and from there, I had to make sure that I come up with my own North Star, the true North. So I started with a quick plan, which I looked at it, that will be my roadmap for 100 days. Come up with a lot of issues. After I completed with my literature review, getting the experience and consolidated all these papers, then I clustered them in 4 specific objectives, very big things that I should focus on to do it so that the commission can stand. The first one was to build the institutional framework. The second was public awareness. The third was compliance issues. And the fourth was the capacity building to my staff, and unfortunately, I didn't have staffs. And the last one was on the enforcement. The only thing which I was advised is not to rush to touch the enforcement button. Then I can start with building the institutional framework, getting the staffs, getting the identity, branding, and then you can understand the institution is there, up and running. And the second, on the awareness, we launched a campaign that was sleepless night. We worked to make sure at least everybody can understand what does the privacy entail. And we categorized on 3 respective areas. The first one being awareness to data subject. Second is the awareness to stakeholders, the data processors and data controllers. And lastly, to the leadership, the CEOs, to understand the risk which is associated with non-compliance. And the third one, we concentrated on compliance issue. And here again, the most hoping thing was some of you guys, you gave us a very big courage. While we were preparing ourselves to start registrations, but we are getting a lot of requests. when are you starting to register? And then I see, oh, these things will be moving voluntarily and not by cohesive. And that was the very promising. And this is the first day then we are meeting on this remarkable conference to talk about how are we going to the next step when we want to start touching the button of enforcement. On the capacity building, also we did the same. And in the enforcement, is only recently after we completed the voluntary registration, then we are going to enforcement. But with this kind of promising meeting, that the first data private conference, we have a lot of data controllers, data processors, and data protection officer. I feel it is going to make a smooth landing to enforcement. So that's how we started, and to date, as we are talking, we have registered more than 15,000 data processors and data controllers, which is a very, very, very big achievement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mkilia. Listening to your reflection, the three of you, one thing became clear to me, that much as your journey was different, but vision, persistence, and leadership is common. And that's why the three of you here, we have a privilege to have you here with us and to learn from the three journeys. But let's explore more the experience in a deeper part. And I'll start now with you, Dr. Mkilia. Tanzania being among the newer private regulators in the region, yet the pace for implementation has been remarkable. You're now talking about going for enforcement in the next couple of days. Looking back over the 2 years, what lessons have surprised you the most, and how are they influencing the Commission's future direction as you move on to implementation now of the law?
Thank you very much. The first thing which surprised me, the preparedness of the stakeholders. Because, as I'm telling you, we have only 2 years, but the way it sounds and the way we work with the stakeholders, I didn't expect that. I expected that it could be like Tom and Jerry chasing, but it's not like that. We are sitting on the same table, yes, around the table, and we talk. But the other thing is about what personal data protection entails. I know the bottom line of data protection is to build trust. And the trust is because the creativity, innovation, and invention at the end requires to build the trust to the data subject, which is the target for all the technologies that we are talking about. So to me, I thought they could use the advantage of using the personal data for their advantage for the business. So what I was surprised is to find they understand the compliance. Most of the institution which need to build the trust or reputation, being a private or being public, is to make sure they build the trust and they build their reputation and they make themselves relevant. But this is because almost everything we do today is prefixed with the E, and this means the platform for any institution to realize their strategic goal is vested on using the technology. And therefore, if they use the technology and then the trust is minimum, the success is next to impossible. So this was something which is very comforting me, and seeing rather than being a regulatory, but a very good and strong partnership in realizing every institution's goal. I think that is a very remarkable thing that I have learned.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG. Some good stuff there. Madam Immaculate, every new regulator learns some lessons as they progress with the organization. Kenya has now accumulated several years of implementation experience. From your experience, what has made the greatest difference between organizations that merely comply with the law and those that genuinely embed privacy into their culture?
I would want to look, thank you very much for that question. I would want to look at that question in terms of what creates clear distinction from one is the relationship you have with your stakeholders. Because like Dr. Emmanuel has said, if you don't have an open door policy, what companies tend to do is to go under the table. Because you're walking around with a stick. And please remember, in the order of things, you know, we say in the hierarchy of norms, food, shelter, accommodation, in that order. If, as a regulator of data privacy, remember you're disadvantaged because you're new in the industry. It is now we are hearing Ministry of Planning speaking about the value of data and the digital economy. So you're a late come Johnny on this whole conversation. So if you come with a stick and you start disciplining people, they will simply not comply, they'll not tell you what's going on. After all, who has the capacity to monitor as data protection authority? So for me, the biggest lesson learned is the capacity to have an open door policy and to collaborate. That way, you build trust. Two is mean what you say and say what you mean. If a controller comes to you as a data protection authority and they tell you, you find that they're having challenges, it adds no value absolutely for you to then go for them with a hammer. They have told you we need 6 months to comply. You insist on them complying within 30 days. You will get zero outcome. The best way to deal with such in terms of lessons learned is to work on a schedule of compliance. 3 is to be able to identify your absolute, please don't try to solve the problem for the world. Try and break down your problems into small, manageable issues. And as you heard Dr. Emmanuel say, my greatest advocate is to have a 100 days plan.
Okay.
It gives you clarity. So you're not saying, I'm going to register 1 million data protection authority in 10 days. You say, I will do 10. Reduce, have your list of priorities. 4, what also distinguishes you is how you craft your law in terms of enforcement.
Oh, yeah.
Because that has worked for us. In fact, we now often say we are the enemy of our own success. Because of how we've been able to address compliance and enforcement, because you see that's part of the challenge. When the Data Protection Authority does not have an enforcement wing, it can work to your disadvantage. So as we have a 90-day window, so within 90 days, we must be able to make determinations. And then the law allows us to do beyond determination to also issue enforcement notice and issue compensation and administrative fines. Those are 3 in 1. That allows you to distinguish, because then you're able to demonstrate. If I'm coming to you with gloves and you don't want to listen, I take off my gloves. So I would say it's a whole range of different strategies that help you to actually understand what your issues are and look for a way of intervening. If it demands enforcement, you go for it. If it demands an issue of awareness creation, you go for it. You really must be able to gauge at what level of compliance the specific institution or the ecosystem is at. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, interesting stuff. Director Baker, what has Uganda found to be the most effective way of turning privacy from a legal obligation into a shared public value embraced by institutions and the citizens alike?
Thank you. So, to be able to turn privacy from the statute books to more of a culture, what has worked for us is ensuring that there are champions that are created. So within an organization, because when we register, they tell us who the data protection officer is, but if that data protection officer remains as an officer in a department whereby they are doing work all by themselves, then it can never be a culture of the organization. So how we've done that is ensuring that it becomes a conversation at the board level. Mm-hmm. So in Uganda, they are required to file annual compliance reports. That report should have been discussed by your board. And of course, it's not just about discussion, but the action points, the board gives them attention, which also goes with resources. Because when it becomes a board matter, then that means it will become an organizational issue, whereby it will be tracked and everyone will be held responsible. That way, we create what we can call, in brackets, a mini regulator within the organization. Because we can't be everywhere, data protection is one of those unique sectors where we regulate everyone and every entity. So to drive the culture, empowering these data protection officers from the top, but not even just stopping there, but also to make it a culture beyond the leadership from the top, and then empowering them, is to also ensure that it can become something that is self-regulatory. We've developed tools. This is a new area, and one of these tools that we've developed to ensure that someone can self-check.
Okay. Where
they find any issues, they can reach out to us, but they can also address. That way they can drive awareness, development of policies, and even dealing with complaints at that level. Because for it to be a culture, in our complaints handling document, the guidelines, we always advise, and it's stated in there, that an opportunity should be given between the complainant and the organization to resolve matters. And we've actually seen most of them resolved from that angle. That way it becomes a culture. Everyone knows there is a timeline and an opportunity to be able to resolve the complaint. But also to ensure that it's actually a culture, the general conversation of privacy, is that we ensure that there is what they call catch them while they are still young. So in most of the complaints we receive in Uganda, they are actually from the young people, the Gen Zs. So this way, when we go and speak to them, we be it part of the classes they are attending, conversations around privacy, they are brought down to that level. That way, that young person can actually bring the conversations to their parents. Their parent could be a teacher that will pass it on to other students in their class, or it could even be a CEO that will ensure that their culture is thinking of privacy. That way, it goes beyond just checking compliance, filing documents, reports, and only waiting for the regulator, but actually it becomes a national conversation whereby entities actually reach out individuals reach out to the entities. And on an individual level, where I've seen it actually transcend compliance, is if I go to, say, a hospital, and I see their privacy notice is displayed very well, but even before I provide my information, they explain to me. Or if I go to a bank and they say, no, this information can't be provided within this period of time because of ABCD, that way we realize that actually it's becoming a culture. And us as the organization, we know we've done our work whereby it's now part of what is done in the organization beyond always waiting for these reports. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that is an interesting part, especially on the culture thing. I remember when we started our public education here, We used to go on radio and TV stations, and I remember once we spoke about the guest houses, hotels. They should not ask for people's tribes and everything like that. And that created a debate of the paradigm shift that when you go to a hotel, why do you want to know my tribe? Are there beds for people coming from Kilimanjaro and that who are coming from South Sudan? Do we have a different biological requirement to tell our tribe so I get a bed in a hotel? So the culture has now shifted in Tanzania. People don't volunteer information. Even our mamas who are very good at saying hello for half an hour before they even talk about what made them make a call. Habari ya watoto, hawajambo, mzee hajambo, and then they forget what they even called to talk about. The changes, as you said, is all about culture. Now, we have seen 3 different experiences which take me to part 2 of our discussion, and this is about trust. We often say privacy build trust, and in the morning, the guest of honor, the 2 speakers, the first 2 speakers, they talk about trust. I believe trust itself cannot be legislated. In your view, what is the single biggest obstacle of preventing citizens from full trusting the digital ecosystem today? We start with Uganda.
So for citizens, it's a lack of transparency. Because, and this was actually informed by the national survey that was conducted, that we talked about, because we noted many people were actually using WhatsApp to just communicate and have conversations. But few people were actually buying or selling anything online. So we asked them, why is this so? And they just told us it's a question of trust. I cannot provide my payment details, and then someone misuses them. They are calling me, telling me that I've won a car, and yet I clearly did not participate in anything. Then they will not release any more information. The other, we also saw it from people opening up specific accounts to transact, where someone will have 2 credit cards, but they tell you, no, this credit card is just for shopping. And it was a question of trust, that if they give this entity all their information, deposit all their money and financial behavior, and it's misused, then they'll be impacted. So that lack of transparency by the organization letting the individuals know that we need this information for ABCD, even where the information, an issue happens, a security incident, giving the individuals assurance on how it can be dealt with without them being impacted or losing their money. That lack of information being provided, and in real time, and information in which they can understand, definitely affects how trust is looked at in digital environments as organizations increasingly go online.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner. For Kenya, what obstacle did prevent? But Kenya was the first one to be able to transact on the digital economy by M-Pesa and everything. What do you think was the obstacle that prevented some to take part of that process?
I think suspicion. People are very suspicious, and perhaps historically, of new regulators. They see it as burdensome. Another one asking us, supposed to be ease of business. Now we have an additional cost. Suspicion and misconception, I would say, that the Data Protection Authority is this super umbrella organization that is collecting every Kenyan data to keep in their custody. And therefore, what relate to an information, and how safe is it, and who else are they sharing with? So we spend a lot of time just trying to explain that this is an independent, the way we are even structured, it's an independent institution so that it's able to protect your information. So those two, misconception and suspicion, are the two things that were a big challenge. We had to go out of our way to create awareness, to just build that level of trust, that we are here to protect your data, and also demonstrate by when people complain to us, we are able to investigate and give decisions that whether they favor them or not, at least that has helped us to build a culture of trust towards the institution.
Thank you, Madam. Dr. 𝐊𝐼𝐴, for Tanzanian side, what was the biggest obstacle preventing citizens from full trusting the digital ecosystem?
Yeah, trust is the outcome. And someone to trust or not to trust, it will depend with the business process to show that how far the risk is mitigated. So even in Tanzania, one of the things you can just see, even if we have a lot of financial platform, you can see now trust is growing, and that is the outcome that when you do it, how safe you are, how secure you are. And this is the reason why we emphasize to have the business process very secured, and this should be security by design and the security by default. But at the same time, the social engineering so that people that can understand the platform which can be used, how secured it is. You can measure in a normal way. For example, you can find we still have people queuing at the bank with a certain amount of money, not being sure that I can transact this through this mobile platform. But when the risk and the issue that happens because of mistrust are being reduced, it means the trust will be increased. So in Tanzania also we can see that, but we can see the trust is growing up because they can feel by the addition of having a personal data protection and knowing their right for their information to be protected, and seeing the commitment of the data processors and data collected, registering to the personal data protection, that adds trust to them that our information will be protected, and if there is any data breach, I have somebody who will be accountable for it. So this is how I look on this, the balance of these things. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Now for the participant, please, if you have a question, you can scan and write your question, and then if it appears there, we'll ask our panelists to respond. But allow me to go on the third part of our dialogue, and this is about compliance. I know it's not something, Dr. 𝐊𝐼𝐴, you love very much, because you have always said we need to protect the businesses, we need to protect the economy. So sometimes compliance, if we were to do compliance, I think in Tanzania, some of us here will not be here. So it is believed enforcement is the regulator's strongest tool. How do you strike the right balance between encouraging compliance and taking enforcement action? How do you balance? Do we give them the enforcement hammer, as Madam has said? How do you balance it, the enforcement and maybe the public education, for people to change the behavior paradigm shift? Dr. 𝐊𝐼𝐴, please.
Thank you very much. In security, sometimes we say we don't have 100% security. So it's a kind of balance again. You tune whether we need high security, medium, and whatever, but the bottom line to get the operation moving up. So if you talk about the issue related to personal data protection vis-a-vis investment, vis-a-vis business, again, we have to come up with a common understanding, seeing what kind of the dashboard that we have to operate with in order to make sure we don't violate the privacy of the people, because these are the part of the ecosystem in the business. But at the same time, we get the innovation and creativity being in place so that we can have the digital transformation. We look at it in almost 5 or 7 areas, which is really very important. when we want to create a privacy. First, we target to the individual's privacy, from which we call this is dignity. But second, we have the technological stack. How the technology is being there to create creativity, innovation, and invention. But there are some other strategies here which is embedded within the digital economy, because the bottom line of digital economy again will come from the trust, so back to square one. And from the digital economy we have issues like relationship, the East African community, the African, the SADC countries, from which if we talk about the creativity and digital economy, we will strive again to see the legal framework we have, how do we balance that, and at the same time, the issues related to investment, how the cost of investment is reduced, because now you can have the countries, we can have the company which work in Tanzania but still need to invest in Kenya. So the kind of relationship that we are talking here, it means to create a very conducive environment for that investment. And again, whatever we do, we need to get back and balance on the issues of national security. The national security, on the issues of data flow, on the issues of privacy, on the issues of the security of the country. We still needed to see everything is balanced along that line, and even the geopolitics. So you can see the compliance issue have got a very wide landscape. And that's why we need to sit in the round table and see how this data are moving from one border to another. Did we do the data protection impact assessment? Do we see all of these risks mitigated and balanced so that we cannot jeopardize the entire reputation? And this is really very important to work on. The other thing, in the compliance issue, we have some of the issues are general. But still we have a very specific business process which needs to have a round-table discussion with the data processors and data controllers. When you understand the business of the business process from one organization, it can entail, you can find there's some slight difference to what we are thinking as a regulator. For example, I cannot know how the tower industry works. I cannot know the entire fintech, let's say fintech platform works and how it has mitigated the security. So we need to talk so that we can facilitate. We can see how do we do it, where we see the risk, what kind of the best way we can mitigate. And this is the reason why the data privacy conference, it will be annually. Because the innovation, technology, and everything is changing very fast, which means also the risk associated to personal data protection will be changing. And this is the reason why, if you come up with a new platform, then we will need to see that it was secured by design, it was private by design, but also the data protection impact assessment was done so that the platform can be trusted. So I think that is the landscape that we should be talking about so that we can have a smooth
of the laws. A study has been done by the East African community where we are participating, and we've actually noticed that we have more in common than what is in divergence. So this will make the businesses more efficient, competitive, but most importantly, as the region, will be able to negotiate with other regions, whereby if it's for trade, Kenya has already started these conversations with the EU, but these conversations would be much stronger as a region. So cross-border data flows supported by harmonizing legislation would really make the region very competitive, and even to the individuals, they will have more confidence that actually their privacy is thought of from the word go based on their very own laws. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Dr. Mkilia?
Thank you very much. Among of the critical issue and the sensitive issue have been the cross-border.
Yes.
floor. And what my brother said is one of the area, can call it like one of the critical areas should be focused on. And what Immaculate have said, again, you can see what are we agreeing and what are we saying no. So to me, I look the issue of data flow like something which have to be looked in a holistic approach. And there is a lot of initiative. If we want to say, where are we today? We have a lot of initiative and you can see a lot of data flow across the region, but we have not justified it that this should be the way we exchange. And the second, if we harmonize our laws, it means we will have the accountability to every country, the East African countries, as far as if we have the authorities and we are talking, we can be able to regulate that. And the ultimate impact of it, it will reduce the investing cost of investors, which again, it can make a very big realization of digital economy in all of these East African countries. Last week, I was in Arusha, and the discussion was with the East African community. The agenda we talked was how can we come up with a single digital market. And these are the issues. There is the technical issues, the technological stack, the way we have built it. There are some of little differences. For example, if we are talking in Kenya, you can see the ICT is more invested with private sectors, the systems, the platform, and all that. In Tanzania, we can still have that. But if we have a harmonized legal framework, that cannot be a problem. Because even in Tanzania, we can see still we have the integration between government system with the private systems. Regulated with e-government, the interaction of fintech and whatever, development of technology in the sectors and whatever, but still we are working on that. So if we can create a kind of harmonized legal framework which can build the trust, then that trust have to go to the level of the country as well, so that we can come up with a common understanding, looking on the challenges that we can have, and see how we can do the impact mitigation. So to me, this is the area which needs to be looked at a strategic level, come up with the strategic objectives, and then narrow down to the technical or tactical interpretation of those strategic issues we see on the issues of data flow across the borders, then see how technically can be addressed with a common understanding, with a harmonized legal framework. And then at the end, we come to the operationalization, where we just put it on a very solid framework that we have established. And I feel this is possible. What comes as a challenge sometimes is when we need this to be supported with geopolitics issues. And geopolitics, they can get in with their own advantage. But I think this is something we can just sit down and think about it. That, come up with a critical framework and see what should be mitigated and what should be allowed. And at the end, we have our own harmonized. And it's not necessary that we can go full. Because if we can look on the good examples, we still have some of the area which are working very well. For example, in the banking industry, we have banks which operate in both East African communities. It means the issue of data is flowing across the border. And that's why now what we talk about is about the platform that you create for data flow across the borders. And then we can see the impact mitigations. Why can't we come up with a common understanding on it and move forward, start with what we have, and then escalate to a one single point platform which will help us to exchange information. I understand issues of geopolitics comes, encouragement of data localization, issues of data sovereignty, and issues of data governance, which is purely those are administrative issues which need to be talked about. That. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, DG. I know that subject, you are very interested in it, and you have been a student of you on geopolitics, and I decided to write a book about it. I'm still looking into content, and I know the three of you could be very good to me when I get retired shortly next week. Now, I have just 10-15 minutes before we proceed for lunch, but I have two critical questions. I doubt whether we'll be able to do the participant unless there is a question in a life and death situation. But I want to ask you genuinely, does East Africa moving fast enough towards regional interoperability? And if there is one thing that you think the regulators should do to harmonize the situation, what will it be? Anyone can respond, and the rest can respond to the question, please.
Because I know Becca is heading a committee on East Africa Community on Data Harmonization, I will allow him to crown it. I think we are not moving fast enough because we are still discussing harmonization. The world has moved from when we started discussing harmonization 2-3 years ago. The world has moved to AI as a real conversation. I think we need to move faster because from a regulatory point of view, if we had joined guidance notes, it means in terms of compliance or standard contractual clauses, it means that a company investing in Kenya can easily comply. And these are some of the complaints we hear as regulators, that companies are experiencing, it's becoming expensive to invest in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, DRC, Somalia, because they have to have multiple compliance. I think we need to move fast enough. The other thing I think in terms of intervention, as we push for the agenda of harmonization, is we need to find a way of having what is standard call adequacy within the community. And then, because if we have adequacy with Tanzania, it means a company in Tanzania does not need to come and set up and do an audit and do, all those things that are required. So at an East Africa level, we need to find a way of giving each other adequacy, because in our own regulatory framework, it says if you are able to demonstrate that the framework in a neighboring country or any other country has similar measures. So that's a low-hanging fruit that we can embrace as regulator. 3, in terms of mutual legal assistance, I think it's one of the things that lacks. Globally, we don't have a framework. We have one on cybersecurity, Budapest, and you can understand when that was passed, it was about cybersecurity. Globally, we don't have a framework apart from the European Council of Europe, the Convention on the Privacy, that actually then looks at issues around mutual legal assistance. Like Becca has said, when you investigate things, which in many cases when it comes to data protection cuts across borders, you then run into a problem because there is no legal framework that will facilitate your investigation in another jurisdiction. So in terms of mutual legal assistance, at a regulatory point of view, and I would believe that the East Africa would help us in terms of investigating beyond the jurisdiction that you have. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Mkilia, before Director Bakari respond on the question of what do you think need to be done in the East Africa community, and are we moving forward quickly to the interoperability when it comes to data flow?
Thank you very much. Sometimes we cannot concentrate to subset of the big issue. So this is just a subset. When we talk about the interoperability, it will be the story of egg and chicken, because it goes around all and all to have the complete cycle. When you talk about, because now the focus when you want to encourage the interoperability It goes hand in hand with the data flow across borders. It goes hand in hand with the fundamental of legal framework. It goes hand in hand with sharing benefit of data. So you can see we still need to get back and have a discussion so all of these things can be looked critically so that we can have a complete cycle. You can see the discussion, all the discussion we are talking about is all about when it comes to data flow across the border, these things become sensitive. And when it comes to issue of interoperability, also, we get back to data flow across the borders. When it comes to issues related to fundamental legal framework, that's why we are talking about harmonization of laws. When we talk about the sharing benefit of data, this goes in the same tune, who gets what. So these are the issues which create the entire complication issue on this. And this starts from the country level to the East African level to African in general with the Malabo Convention, and the same discussion is going, and even globally is the same thing, with not only personal data, with also even open data. Who is the benefit on it, what Africa is getting, considering about the cloud computing and the information being populated on the international big tech. What are they getting? What are they getting back as a kind of thing? So if we want to climb that mountain, it's that very important. We start on our own in a small tune, trust in our own from which we have the same culture and where we can embrace issues like artificial intelligence, machine learning with the data that is circulating within our region. That's what I can look at.
That is an interesting response, DG, and I appreciate for the masterclass the three of you are giving us here, because this is a mini MBA for those that are sitting here, and if they can take this as serious as you three have taken it. Director, do you want to respond on anything on this? Because we are moving to the last part, please.
Thank you. So on this, as the East African community, we need to move faster, as Immaculate said. We've had this conversation for so many years. So starting with the East African Community Secretariat, because it is them to champion this as something of the community. We've done a number of things and steps have been made. The meeting that we earlier talked about, that we are having, we now have principles that should guide the East African community, but now to have that law, the law which will also support having a committee where the heads of data protection authorities in the region will sit to look at those questions of how the different areas of the law can be interpreted, but also having a regional law. So what really needs to be done for the different countries to prioritize it. I know we've all been prioritizing it, but we need to prioritize it more as something of strategic value, whereby these discussions are actually monitored in the different countries of how far are we getting to having a harmonized regulatory environment, and we keep reporting to the policymakers, but also those in charge of foreign affairs and even regional, because in East Africa we all have a ministry in charge of East African community affairs. That way we can move faster to realize that regional law.
Thank you very much, Director Baker. Now my last question. I know I've held you here for a very long day, and we are standing between ourselves and the lunch. I want each and every one of you to talk a little bit about the AI. Somebody is watching us through Michuzi TV, and he was asking if we are real people or we are AI, because some are very quiet, and you guys are talking, and you have so much you are discussing, and they don't know where it is coming from. Is it just from your desk and your heads or what? So they're asking if you are AI or what. I want you to speak a little bit about the challenges of AI. Is it a challenge or is it an opportunity for innovation and everything that entails privacy and data protection. But also, when you finish that, just to give us your final thoughts. We start now with Director Beck as well, and we'll finish with the Dr. 𝐊𝐿𝐴.
So AI it has so many opportunities, especially to do with knowledge management. So for that health worker who may not have specialty in a specific area of healthcare, they can be able to get information that is specialized within a short period of time. As the Personal Data Protection Office in Uganda, we've also piloted AI in complaints resolution earlier. But the risks are many. These risks mainly are around starting with the data itself. AI is like a child, they can only learn with what is given to them. But with this child of AI, it can grow up, but it can also have misconceptions. It may not properly understand our context, which means that it may give information that is factually wrong, or information that does not reflect our realities. So that calls for having proper governance to ensure that it is properly governed from the training, because if it is being trained, instead of using live data that it will keep, you can use privacy-enhancing technologies where you use synthetic data that mirrors the actual information, but when it's not the live data, to minimize the risks. But then also using it in systems where it will be making decisions. In recruitment, if it's shortlisting, there should be a human intervention to review. If it is applying for that loan or an insurance product, a human should review. Because of the biases that it has, based on the lack of correct information it may have, it could actually impact individuals. So the opportunities are many, the risks are vastly more though, but they can be governed by having proper frameworks. And some of these frameworks already in use. International standards, UNESCO has come up with some of them. There is even an AI policymaker network of Asia and Africa. So there is a lot of capacity building, a lot that can be learned, and then us as data protection authorities guiding on how to especially use data for training, but also how it can be safely deployed in environments. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Becker. Commissioner Immaculate, please. Your final thoughts, and also about AI.
Okay, I think most of the risks have been identified by Becker. I need not speak about. However, I'll say two things. One, why I think what is projected by futuristic people, they say AI is likely to be like electricity. It's the biggest, one of the biggest innovation in fourth industrial revolution. Because perhaps someday, and you can already see it, whether you're using Microsoft, Google, genetic AI has become the big thing, so we can't ignore it. The risks in as far as data protection is concerned is the black box. Key principles on data protection are accountability and transparency. In AI, you almost, it's one of the principles that is being pushed is the need to label the source and also disclose where you're getting the information from. As is, AI is like, when we grew up, we used to be told a story about these, they call them ogre or giant, whichever. That their work was to eat sheep in the village, they don't seem to be getting satisfied. Because really AI is about getting all these data sets and it's training AI models. In that collection of that massive data, it's blurred. The sources of data, transparency and accountability, it is something that is questionable in terms of AI. So that needs to be dealt with. The second one is bias. And that particularly applies to us in Africa. Many of the AI models being trained don't have data from Africa. There's conversation around that. There are many other things, environmental issues. We are seeing a very big shift globally to have AI centers, AI data centers, which require massive compute Massive compute meaning you will have to light those data centers in countries where we are having challenges of water. That I leave it up to you. Can we have conversation about how we are going to balance? So when you have an AI data center and you have millions of people without water, which will be the priority?
Oh, yeah.
Those are the challenges, but it's inevitable. The other thing that is not being spoken about, and now ethically people are talking about the risks of AI, is unemployment. It is projected that in a short while, lawyers, doctors, and I mean, I don't sound an alarmist, will have no jobs. You have to, the blue-collar jobs will have jobs, but the rest of us will be relegated to critical thinking. Those are not conversations we are having. We need to have them. But we are here to discuss privacy. More importantly, on data protection, can we have guardrails around AI that we embrace as a region? Can we speak as East Africa? When our East Africa ministers meet later in the year, can we have one single speaking point on what are the AI guiding principles at East Africa level? That would be a good starting point for us. And then what would this look like? Then we are informing the rest of the countries on what they want to do. My takeaway, I want to just say thank you for the wonderful opportunity to come to Dar es Salaam. I haven't been here in a long time. It's beautiful to be in Dar always. Great infrastructure. We have seen a beautiful airport, if I may say so myself. Thank you, Dr. Emmanuel, for the hospitality to take part in this panel and also to start, more importantly, the conversation and push the button on the need to have harmonized data protection framework, because there is that Swahili saying, the one you can't kill what with a single finger. There's that Swahili saying, you can't kill huwezi ua chawa na kidole kimoja. Huwezi ua chawa na kidole na umoja ni nguvu. So umoja ni nguvu, iwe ndio lile jambo ambalo hii kikao inaendelea kueneza katika East Africa.
Wow. Asante sana, Madam. Director General, Dr. Mkilia, about AI, but also your final thoughts, as well as thanking your colleagues for being here. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much. I can look this way. To me, I feel AI can pose challenges, but at the same time can pose great opportunity. I wouldn't prefer to repeat what my fellow directors have said, but I can just stick to the issues related to personal data protection. For the personal data protection, AI can have automated decision. And this automated decision can be biased because the food of AI is big data, and it depends where this data is coming from. But behind the data, there are issues which is embedded in it, because data is a kind of a time series information, which at the end, they can create a certain pattern, and that pattern represents someone's feeling. So you can see, with data, it will depend where this data were collected. And again, with AI, for example, we can have biased answers, which is basically does not represent our culture and the way we decide things. The other thing, we all understand the data centers in East Africa is not as much as in other developed countries. So a lot of information which are populated and which are fed to the AI models probably does not represent our own culture. So that can be a challenge, but it is an opportunity because it can facilitate and sometimes can be smarter if the data fed is relevant, can be smarter than a human brain based to those data fed on the AI. So it is an opportunity and it can be a challenge. Still, in the personal data perspective, it can be that way. But sometimes if we are using the data for weather, for agriculture, it is very useful today because it can still create a lot of solutions. And I can see even in the country now, we have some platforms which have been created and they are facilitating these kind of things in agriculture, in health, and whatever. Thank you so much.
Thank you, DG. Maybe your last word to your fellow Director Generals as we conclude the session.
My last word, first of all, I have to thank you, sincerely thank you very much for showing up. And at least we are creating a common thinking in East Africa. We usually say, seeing is believing. And when we communicate, we understand at least what are we thinking at an individual level. And this marks to us that we still have a common understandings, the same focus. The North Star, which is our true North, still the same. So we have to work and trust the North Star so that we can get offshore together. Thank you very much.
Asante sana. Makofi, a round of applause for our panelists. As a summary, we can agree that the discussion was not only simple as I expected, it was really tough, and we have learned that much as our legal framework across the East African region may differ, but our aspirations are remarkably similar. Privacy is not simply about compliance, it's about trust, it's about cooperation, it's about life and dignity of the citizen of East Africa. I was privileged to have this conversation with you. Really very big respect for me. I'll declare my interest. I think my Director General will allow me. On Friday is my last day in office. Next week, yes, I'm going home to rest. And thank you, DG, for giving me an opportunity to have this conversation and to work with the PDPC. Asanteni sana, 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 na karibuni. Naomba wapate picha, the panel to have a photo. Naomba msimame tafadhali. Beck, I'm sure you are following me. And I'll ask a privilege of having a photo with you as well. That's $1 million photo. Make sure inatoka vizuri. Na mimi nasogea, naomba nipate moja. Another round of applause for our panelists. Thank you very much for being patient. I know it was very tempting to cut short the discussion, but as you saw, it was interesting, and I couldn't help about making sure I ask all questions in those areas that I felt like they were important. Now we are going for lunch for 45 minutes. We'll resume around 3 in the afternoon. We have several sessions, but we'll make sure we don't stay here longer than expected. So food is served on the 3rd floor. We'll take these doors. There are lifts on this side and this side, but for the VIP and the speakers, please take this side. The protocol people will show us. Can I see the protocol for VIPs? To show them the area, the lift. So we have 2 lifts to go on the 3rd floor, but also there are stairs behind the auditorium. Have a good lunch, bon appetit, and see you at 3. Asanteni sana. Jamani, pigeni basi hata.